LoveLore Library. Chapter 340. Robes, shirts, shoes, and shoes were taken off one by one. Even if Mayan doesn't dare to raise her head, she can still feel the man's sexy abs and waistline in front of her. There was also the man's unique scent. Because they were so close, it kept drilling into her nose, making her head unconsciously dizzy. When there's only a pair of underwear left, Mayan's hand stops. However, Deming-ju still stands in front of her, not budging an inch. Then, she heard the man's deep and husky voice. Continue. What? Mu Yan almost raised her head and stared at him in shock. But Deming-ju says as if it's a matter of course, Ben-jun wants to take a bath. Don't tell me you want Ben-jun to take a bath wearing pants. Steam rose from the hot spring, blurring the faces of the two people. Therefore, even though Deming-ju's body is almost completely stripped right now, she can't see it as clearly as when she was drawing that day. But even if she couldn't see clearly, having her strip off every single one of his clothes was too. Mu Yan inwardly curses Deming-ju, this pervert, countless times. But in the end, the situation was stronger than the person. Moreover, wouldn't it be more convenient for her to escape if she stripped this man naked? Thinking of this, Mu Yan grits her teeth. She grabbed the waist of the man's trousers and pulled it all the way down. During the process, the back of her hand accidentally touched the hot spring. She was so scared that she almost kicked the man into the hot spring pool. Amidst the rising steam, Mu Yan can still see the man's straight and slender legs. Even if it was just a shadow, this man's body was still so seductive and perfect. Now, can I? Jun Shang. The last two words are squeezed out by Mu Yan's teeth. She swore that if this pervert dared to cause any more trouble, she would definitely kick him into the pond. Deming-ju lowers his head and looks at the young girl in front of him. The corner of his mouth hooks up into a shallow smile as he looks at the angry Mu Yan. This little woman, did she think he couldn't recognize her? In fact, her acting was very good. If it were someone else, he might not have been able to tell that it wasn't Ingmei. However, the person pretending to be a shadow demon is Jun Mayan. In this world, he, Deming-ju, might not be able to recognize anyone, but he would never be unable to recognize Jun Mayan. Even if it was a wisp of aura or a tiny movement, he seemed to be familiar with it to the bone. Originally, he knew that Mayan wanted to escape, and his heart was still full of anger. At this moment, when he saw the young girl's indignant expression, all of this turned into gentleness and love. Usually, Mayan is always lazy and calm, as if she doesn't care about anything. What Deming-ju wants to see the most is for her to reveal a different attitude of a daughter because of him. The atmosphere in the hot spring was especially strange because of the long silence between the two. Mu Yan's entire body stiffens, her heart pounding like a drum. Just as she was about to lose it, the man suddenly turned around and slowly walked into the hot spring. The milky white water and the steaming mist cover the man's body, allowing Mayan to heave a long sigh of relief. Now, she could finally leave. However, just as he took a step forward, she hears Deming-ju's magnetic voice slowly ring out with a bit of laziness and lust, "Come here." Mayan's footsteps stiffen, her hands clenching into fists. What does this pervert want to do now? She really wanted to leave, but the problem was that the exit was at the other end of the hot spring pool. She could not guarantee that she would be able to use her qin gong to escape. Will Deming-ju drag him into the pond midway? Chapter 341. Come here and scrub my back. The man's voice became hoarse and lazy, like a feather that drilled into one's heart. Mu Yan couldn't help but look up, her blood almost rushing to her nose. This scene was too against the rules. She saw the man lazily lying on the edge of the pool. Her long, jet black hair was tucked in front of her chest, vaguely covering the spot on her chest. What was revealed, however, was her honey-colored skin and her sexy back that was submerged in the water. Mu Yan swallows her saliva and can't help but look at the man's face. Demingju's complexion has always been extremely beautiful. Sword-like eyebrows, starry eyes, a straight nose, and thin lips. Not a single inch of his facial features was imperfect. When put together, he was even more handsome than a mortal. But usually, the aura around him was indescribably cold and distant. He was so high up that no one dared to get close to him and blaspheme him. But at this moment, Demingju has shed all of his indifference, and on the contrary, has added a trace of evil charm that can make people's hearts tremble. It was a person. No matter men or women. Seeing this scene, no one would be able to control themselves. Demingju suddenly lifts his eyes, the corner of his lips slightly hooking up. What are you still staring at? Aren't you going to help me wipe my back? Mu Yan abruptly comes back to herself. That little bit of charm and reverie just now instantly turned into gnashing her teeth. So be it. Hopefully, this man can take it. Mu Yan casually picks up a towel from the side, wets it, and wipes it on Demingju's back. Profound energy quietly circulated, and the ordinary towel even emitted a caw-caw sound of the thread breaking. With this kind of strength, even if it was used to rub a piece of granite, it would be able to rub it full of holes. But what makes Mu Yan dumbfounded is no matter how much strength she uses, Demingju's back is still smooth and sexy. Not even the slightest trace was left behind. Fuck. Was he still human? What was this bastard's skin made of? Out of curiosity, Mu Yan couldn't help but reach out and scratch the smooth and warm skin with her fingers. In a split second, Demingju's body shudders uncontrollably. Before Mu Yan could react, she only feels that the sky and earth are spinning. He was pulled over by a strong force. Thump. A large amount of warm water surged over and covered her head and face. Cough, cough, cough. Mu Yan comes out of the water with great difficulty, only to meet the man's scarlet eyes. The previously icy blue color had completely transformed into flames of desire at this moment. Mu Yan, do you know when a woman will grab a man's back like this? Mu Yan is startled. She is a little flustered by the flames in the man's eyes. She wants to escape. However, as soon as she moved, the man's lips fell on her. He held her tightly in his arms, as if he couldn't wait to swallow her whole. A hoarse voice, with a strong sense of expectation, intermittently rings in her ears, only, when we are in the bridal chamber. Mayan, do you want to try it now? Mayan. 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 Yen Yen, wait a minute. Mayan abruptly comes back to her senses from her confusion. She bends her knee and viciously knocks it. Demingju snorts, and has no choice but to let go of the person. No matter how high his cultivation is, no matter how impregnable he is, he still wouldn't be able to resist that kind of pain. Cough, cough. Mu Yan glares at him indignantly, cursing as she retreats towards the edge of the pool. So you really knew. Chapter 342. Mayan stares blankly, a strange sweetness inexplicably welling up in her heart. Demingju's words simply tell her that, to him, she's different, and no one can compare to her. Wait a minute. Now's not the time to be secretly happy about these inexplicable things. The most important thing right now is to escape from here, to see her baby. Mayan leaps and leaves the hot spring pool. Standing on the shore, she looks at Demingju, whose face is still somewhat distorted from the pain just now. She can't help but take pleasure in his misfortune, curling up the corners of her lips. Jun Shang, you can continue to take a good bath here, I'll go first. Saying that, his figure flashes, and as fast as lightning, he heads out the door. This hot spring pool is at the southernmost part of the courtyard, separated from the outside world by a wooden door. Mayan has just opened the wooden door, about to escape without a trace. She suddenly feels something tighten around her waist, and her whole body flies out. Before she could clearly see what's wrapped around her waist, she sees a silver whip flash in front of her, and the wooden door that was just opened is slammed shut with a bang. And Mayan's body falls straight down in midair. Below her is the hot spring pool. However, the scene of her falling into the water doesn't appear as she expected. Instead, she's being pulled into a blazing embrace. The man's low, hoarse, and angry voice rings in her ears. "Dressed like this, where do you think you're going?" At this moment, although Mayan is wearing clothes, she's completely drenched, revealing the curves of her body. Her hair bun was also disheveled from the action just now, and her long, messy hair drapes behind her, making her look even more enchanting and charming, like the most beautiful goblin coming out of the water. If Mayan leaves this courtyard like this, and is seen by the men outside, as soon as Deming-ju thinks of such a scene, he can't wait to dig out the eyes of all the men in his imagination. "You don't want to stay with me that much?" Why is it that from the moment they've met, this woman has always tried every possible way to escape from his side? Mayan feels that she's firmly imprisoned in the man's embrace. Through the thin, drenched clothes, she can even feel the man's skin's blazing heat and explosive power. She struggles to leave, but she's imprisoned even tighter. She can only brace herself and say, "Deming-ju, you said that as long as I raised the dark cloud's spirit flower, you'd let me go. We met by chance, why do you have to?" Deming-ju snorts coldly. Strangers meeting by chance can also turn into mutual promises of life and death. "You are destined to be my wife." Mu Yen grits her teeth. "Who is your wife? Don't be so shameless. When did I say I wanted to marry you? You won't marry me." "Not marrying." Deming-ju's expression is indifferent. "Oh, then Ben-jun can also marry into your family." Mu Yen, what the fuck? Deming-ju, do you know what you're saying? Jun Shangdaran, do you still want your face? Mu Yen takes a deep breath, then another deep breath. Deming-ju, what do you see in me? With your qualifications, what kind of woman can't you have? Why do you have to pester me, a married man with a child? Didn't you give your dark cloud's spirit flower to that Shirshenzi? You're even willing to give her the dark cloud's spirit flower, so Shi Laoling's position in your heart isn't low. Isn't it better for you to find her and tie the knot?" When he hears Mu Yen mention her ex-husband again, Deming-ju's heart sinks to the bottom of a valley. The anticipation in his eyes completely turns into pain and jealousy. However, the more he listens, the more the gloominess between his brows dissipates. Chapter 343. Mayan. Deming-ju sticks close to her ear from behind, slowly saying, "You still say that you're not jealous? You did everything you could to leave this place. Besides missing Xiaobao, was it also because you were angry that I gave the dark cloud's spirit flower to Shi Laoling?" When he first met Mayan, our Jun Shangdaran was indeed a virgin brother without any experience in love. But ever since he was determined to chase after Mayan and obtain her heart, Deming-ju had Han Yi look for all kinds of stories and plays, just to learn a little bit how to make Mayan happy, how to move her heart, how to make her fall in love with him. Of course, these shameful things, Jun Shangdaran will absolutely not say it out loud. But the effect of this was also remarkable. From the very beginning, when the two people met, Deming-ju was inexperienced, being played in circles by Mu Yen. By now, Mu Yen was already unable to withstand this man's endless methods. "You're thinking too much. Why should I be jealous of you? Let go." On the contrary, Deming-ju tightens his grip, his voice becoming increasingly hoarse, "I won't let go. I won't let you go for the rest of my life." Bang! Water splashed everywhere. Mu Yan presses her hand on the man, taking advantage of Di Mingju's momentary absent-mindedness. He soared into the air. However, before she could fly ashore, his ankle was grabbed and forcefully pulled back. This time, Mu Yan is pressed to the edge of the pool. He raised his hands above his head. Di Mingju looks down at her, his eyes slightly red. The water droplets on her hair drip down, flowing onto Mayan's body and face. Mu Yan is inexplicably flustered when she's being stared at by those blazing eyes. Her blood is boiling and her mouth is parched. However, before the two of them could speak or move, the hot springs door was suddenly slammed open. Jun Shang, this subordinate has already given the Dark Cloud's spirit flower to Shi Lanling, she guarantees. Han Ye's voice comes to an abrupt halt. Facing Di Mingju's murderous gaze, he quivered and shivered. At this very moment, Han Ye really wants to slap himself to death. Who asked him to push open the door? Who asked him to report the progress of alchemy with his cheap mouth? Letting him have nothing better to do than to disturb Jun Shang and Miss Mayan. I didn't see anything, I didn't say anything, Jun Shang, spare my life. Woo woo woo. With a bang, Han Ye closes the door once again. Like he's fleeing, he slips away without a trace. Mayan, who has already sobered up, hooks up the corners of her lips. Doesn't Jun Shang Darren want to know what your soulmate, Shenzi, has promised you? I don't want to. Di Mingju clenches his teeth and spits out two words. The corners of Mu Yan's lips curve deeper, but I really want to know. Di Mingju lowers his head and gently bites her lips. You'll know soon enough. Also, I don't have any female confidants, only you, my future wife. Ugh! Mu Yan ruthlessly kicked him. This bastard was born in the year of the dog. It actually bit him. If you move again, I won't be able to hold myself back, and I'll make you my wife right now. A scorching breath breathes into Mu Yan's ears, as if carrying an infinite sigh and longing. Mu Yan's movements stiffen. In the end, Di Mingju doesn't move again. Instead, he carried her and flew to the edge of the hot spring. Water splashed everywhere and mist lingered. When the water falls back to the ground, Di Mingju has already put on his clothes. Mu Yan raises her eyebrows. Storage space. She had already guessed that Di Mingju should have a storage space, otherwise he wouldn't often take things out of thin air. But she has never felt it so directly like this time. Chapter 344. Di Mingju doesn't answer her, but grabs her hand and flattens it. A moment later, a brownish-red ring lies on Mu Yan's palm. The man's voice carried a hint of disdain. The storage rings on this continent are too crude and have no value. If you like it, it doesn't matter if you play with it. Mu Yan infused her internal force to feel it, and her head suddenly felt a little dizzy. In her previous life, Gong Qinshua also had a storage ring. However, the storage space was only dozens of square meters in size. Gong Qinshua treasured it like it was something. Its status could even be equal to that of Gong Qinshua's contracted holy beast. But the space in her hand is no less than several hundred square meters. Moreover, when internal force is injected, the space is very stable. Even the herbs and drafts inside can be kept fresh. But Di Mingju has the attitude of, I despise this shabby thing, giving it away would simply throw Ben Jun's face. Mu Yan really didn't know what to say. Cough. Mu Yan returns the storage ring. I also have a storage space, I don't need this. Take it back. In fact, she always takes the Tian Mo Chin in and out of thin air, so everyone in the courtyard already knows that she has space. He just didn't expect it to be such a special space. Deming-ju doesn't take the storage ring back. Instead, he strings it on a chain and hangs it around Mayan's neck. In the future, Ben-jun will give you a better one. But it's good for you to carry it now. At the very least, it can help you cover up a little. Mayan stares blankly. She raises her head to meet the man's eyes that are as deep as the sea, and her heart trembles. Why does she always feel that Deming-ju seems to know something? He shouldn't be able to guess the identity of the Tian Mo Chin and her Shin musician, right? After all, Bailey Yin-lu had said that the Shin musicians had already disappeared from this world for thousands of years. In all the continents of the three realms, Shin musicians are an unspeakable, taboo existence. At this point, it should be impossible for anyone to know his identity as a Shin musician, right? With lingering fear, Hanyi scrambles out of the hot spring pool. After running for a long distance, he finally stopped, panting heavily. His heart was still filled with doubt and shock. Back then, Jun Shang didn't even allow people to get close to him, let alone taking a bath. Even Elder Chang, who has the closest relationship with Jun Shang. But now, Jun Shang actually pulled Miss Mayan to bathe in the pool. So much so that Jun Shang doesn't even have a single piece of clothing on him. Han Yi touches his nose, feeling a little dizzy. If he were to say these words to Little Shadow and the people from the polar domain, their jaws would definitely drop. Oh, right, where's Little Shadow? She remembered that he seemed to have said that he was going to deliver a meal to Miss Mayan, but he never came back. Could it be that he had been waiting for someone in Miss Mayan's room? Thinking of this, Han Yi promptly goes to Mu Yan's room. With Little Shadow's stubborn temper, if he doesn't see Miss Mayan return, he might keep waiting. Just as he reaches the door of Mayan's room and is about to enter, the door was opened from the inside with a bang. A tall and slender woman in a long dress with her hair draped loosely over her shoulders rushed out. As soon as Han Yi sees this woman, he only feels an explosion in his head. His heart seemed to have been hit by something. It was beating so fast that it felt like it was about to jump out of his mouth. Chapter 345. Her figure was not petite like other women, but rather tall and slender. But those straight legs, those undulating and round chest lines, all made her full of seductive charm. Han Yi couldn't help but open his mouth, but his tongue and mouth are parched, unable to say a word. On the contrary, when this beauty sees him, she immediately reveals a familiar and anxious expression. Han Yi, Miss June has left. Han Yi. This beauty called him Han Yi. And why did the voice sound so familiar? It was cold and had a youthful feel to it. Wait a minute. Why does this beauty's face look so familiar? You are Little Shadow. She hears something wrong in Han Ye's tone. Ingmei seemed to be stunned, then looked down at her body. The first thing that entered his eyes was the undulating curves of her chest and the skirt that belonged to a woman. There was also her long hair, which danced in the wind behind her. Ingmei's eyes widened. She was actually wearing women's clothing. And it was even seen by Han Yi. Why was she wearing women's clothing? Right, it's Miss June. When Miss June left, they changed clothes. Little Shadow, you can't be a woman, right? Han Ye's eyes stare straight at Ingmei. He swallows, and swallows again. Ingmei's personality had always been cold, and her methods were even more ruthless than a man's. Moreover, there was not the slightest trace of femininity in her movements. Therefore, even though Ingmei is delicate and pretty, even more beautiful than many of the beauties in the polar domain, Han Yi has never doubted that she might be a woman. But the girl in front of him was too beautiful, too tempting. Her cheeks were as white as snow. Her dress fluttered gracefully in the wind. Saying that Ingmei was a girl really didn't feel the slightest bit strange. When Ingmei heard this, she was shocked. A hint of panic flashed in her eyes, and she quickly disappeared. Her expression was cold, and her eyes were piercingly cold. She said in a low voice, "Don't blame me for being impolite if you speak nonsense again." As he spoke, he released his ice-cold killing intent. Han Yi isn't afraid of Ingmei's murderous intent. But looking at her cold face, it was obvious that she was really angry. He quickly put away his emotions and said with a smile, "Little Shadow, don't be angry. I was just joking. But your clothes are." Come to think of it, if he was treated as a woman, he would definitely be angry. Ingmei frowns in annoyance, then his face is dyed with anxiety. "It's Miss June. She changed into my clothes and left. I must go find her immediately, otherwise if June Shang finds out, it'll be troublesome." After saying that, he's about to dash out of the cold night. Han Yi promptly reaches out to block her. In the end, no one knew how the two of them moved. Ingmei's chest happens to bump into Han Ye's arm. The soft touch makes Han Ye's whole body stiffen and his eyes widen. "Get out of the way." Ingmei's pretty face is flushed with anger, and she's about to slap Han Yi with her palm. "Wait! Wait!" Han Yi repeatedly begs for mercy, reaching out to grab Ingmei's slender wrist, urgently saying, "Miss June didn't leave, she's with June Shang right now. You mustn't disturb him, otherwise he would definitely die a horrible death like him." "Are you serious?" "It's absolutely true." Han Yi almost swears to the heavens, "I saw it with my own eyes, how could it be fake?" The air is quiet for a moment. "You still won't let go." Ingmei's face is flushed, and she struggles with all her might. Chapter 346. Her wrist was held by this person and she couldn't break free no matter how hard she tried. Han Ye's expression is somewhat absent-minded, his fingers subconsciously gently caressing Ingmei's wrist. He only felt that the skin on that fair and slender wrist was shockingly smooth and soft. How could a man have such snow-white, smooth skin? And the feeling when the shadow phantom bumped into her hand just now, "Han Yi, if you don't let go, I won't be polite." Ingmei flew into a rage out of humiliation. With an angry shout, he slaps his palm towards Han Yi. Han Yi abruptly comes back to his senses, but it's already too late to dodge. His left eye took a solid punch. Ouch! He let out a blood-curdling scream and took 2 steps back. She covered her eyes and complained, "Little Shadow, you're prettier than a girl, but why are you so cruel?" Ingmei hides her hand, which is burning hot from Han Ye's grasp, behind her back. He said coldly, "If you ever compare me to a girl again, I'll make you a real girl." Saying that, his line of sight slightly drifts, passing over Han Ye's lower body. Han Yi immediately feels his balls tighten, his face pale with fright. I was just joking. Little Shadow, you don't have to be so serious. But you look really good in this. Did Miss June change it for you? Miss June is really talented. What did she do to your chest? Why does it feel so real? As he says that, Han Yi very curiously reaches out to touch Ingmei's chest. Smack! Ingmei ruthlessly slaps away Han Ye's salty pig hand. The sword in his hand was unsheathed, filled with killing intent. "You don't want your hand anymore." After saying that, he paid no more attention to Zhang Xian and quickly left. She couldn't maintain her current appearance any longer. Especially in front of Han Yi. Ingmei's figure quickly disappears, leaving Han Yi dumbfounded in his place. He clenched and unclenched his fists. His fingertips and arms could still feel the sensation from earlier. Smooth and soft. Oh no! Han Yi clutches his chest, his expression flustered. What's wrong with him? He knew that it was Little Shadow. He knew that Little Shadow was a boy. But why was it that whenever he thought of Little Shadow's face, he felt as if there was a fire burning in his body? An unfamiliar tide of emotions surged out from his body. It was unstoppable. Lanling's small building, in the alchemy room. Only Lanling sat alone in front of the pill furnace. The surroundings of the pill furnace emitted a faint purple light, and one could faintly see the rising flames inside. If someone saw this pill furnace, they would definitely exclaim. That's because this Zijin Dan furnace is one of the most valuable Dan furnaces in the Yanwu continent. The only thing comparable to her value was probably the golden coiling dragon furnace in the hands of the Heavenly Road Sect's alchemy master, Jian Feng. The profound energy in Lanling's body quickly surged, driving the flames in the purple gold furnace to jump. As the flames burned brighter and brighter, the entire room was filled with the cool fragrance of the dark cloud's spirit flower. In the pill furnace, there were also 3 silver-white pills that were slowly taking shape. Lanling's forehead was covered in fine sweat, and her face was deathly pale. However, when he saw the 3 golden elixirs of 9 orifices slowly condensing, he was filled with pride and excitement. According to the ancient records, the dark cloud's spirit flower was rare, and the 9 orifices golden pill was difficult to refine. But in Lanling's eyes, it was nothing. She could still refine 3 pills in one go. However, just as Lanling was feeling proud of herself. Chapter 347. Then there's a loud bang. Before Lanling could react, a monstrous wave comes head-on towards her. Her whole body is thrown several meters away, and she heavily hits a table and chair. Miss, what's wrong? The maid outside hears the commotion and rushes in. She is startled to see Lanling lying on the ground, her hair disheveled and her body covered in soot. Miss, what's wrong? What's going on? Lanling pushes away the maid who comes to help her, and rushes to the Dan furnace at lightning speed. She opens the lid, only to find that the elixir that was just about to condense into shape. At this time, 2 of them have already completely broken into black slag. There was only one that was emitting a silver light, and it lay alone in the pill furnace. Lanling's brows tightly knit together, a deep unwillingness flashes through her eyes. 9 orifices golden Dan. This is a 9 orifices golden Dan. She originally thought that if she could refine 3, she might be able to keep 1 for herself. In this way, she would certainly be able to break through her bottleneck. But now, the stamens of the 3 dark cloud spirit flowers can only refine 1 9 orifices golden Dan. And this 9 orifices golden Dan is the deal she agreed to with June. Miss, you're already very amazing. The maid on the side sees Lanling's depressed and unwilling appearance, and promptly flatters her with a smile. This slave dares to say that in the Yanwu continent, besides Miss, no one can refine the 9 orifices golden Dan. Of course, no one can refine the 9 orifices golden Dan, because not a single dark cloud spirit flower can be found in the entire Yanwu continent. But listening to the maid Ruizhu's words, Lanling's pale and distressed face still shows a trace of pride. That's right. This is a 9 orifices golden Dan, in the entire Yanwu continent. Besides her, who else can refine it? Even Jian Feng of the Heavenly Road sect can't do it. If this news were to spread, then her reputation, Lanling, would even overshadow Jian Feng's title as the world's #1 alchemist. Ruizhu saw that Lanling's complexion had improved a lot, so she hurriedly continued, what's more, that noble even took out 3 stalks of dark cloud's spirit flower for you, Mississippi. Perhaps this golden elixir of 9 orifices was refined for you. Even if it wasn't for you in the beginning, I believe that as long as you express your desire, no man in this world would be able to refuse you. Shi Lanling cast a sidelong glance at her maid. You're the only one who knows how to speak nonsense. How can this be considered as nonsense? Ruizhu makes a big fuss. Miss, why don't you go and take a look? On this Yanwu continent, in terms of beauty, talent, cultivation, and alchemy, how many people can contend against you? Even if it's Jingqing country's illustrious Princess Qinxue, compared to you, she is only the light of a firefly and the splendor of the bright moon. She doesn't have the qualifications to be mentioned in the same breath. It's just that Miss isn't as high profile as that Princess Qinxue. Otherwise, how could Gong Qinxue have the title of Yanwu continent's #1 genius? Shi Lanling pursed her lips and revealed a faint and reserved smile. Go get me some water. I want to wash up and change my clothes. Ruizhu hurriedly left. Not long after, Shi Lanling changed out of her dirty clothes and washed away the dust on her face, revealing her beautiful face. It's just that her complexion still looks pale due to excessive consumption of internal force. Ruizhu hands over the brocade box containing the 9 orifices golden dand. Miss, now that the elixir has been refined, do you need this maid to call Han Yi over to pick it up? Chapter 348. However, Shi Lanling shot a cold glance at Ruizhu. Ruizhu shuddered and immediately reacted, look at how silly I am. Miss, of course I have to personally deliver the pill that you refined to the Emperor. Only then will the Emperor be able to sense your intentions. The coldness in Shi Lanling's eyes faded. The man's incomparably handsome face appeared before her eyes once again, as well as the aura of a monarch descending upon the world. She recalls how all the higher-ups of the ghost city grovel in front of this man and flatter him. And that man, from his expression to his actions, was so cold, so high and mighty. It was as if it was natural for him to be worshipped like this. This was a man who was born to stand at the top, noble and unparalleled. Shi Lanling only took one look at him, and she was deeply captivated by him. Therefore, after learning that the man wants to find someone to refine the 9 orifices golden pill in the ghost city, Shi Lanling, who has always been aloof and proud, refuses to lower herself to accept a task. Without saying anything further, she immediately agrees to the deal with Di Mingju. At that time, Han Yi explained the contents of the transaction very clearly. Di Mingju will provide the Dark Cloud's spirit flower, as well as many other resources that are extremely beneficial to Shi Lanling. The only thing Shi Lanling needed to do was to use the Dark Cloud's spirit flower to refine at least one golden pill of 9 orifices. But in Shi Lanling's eyes, this kind of action was automatically interpreted as, Di Mingju treats her differently, giving her the Dark Cloud's spirit flower and resources, all because of his affection for her. As for her, she would definitely hold on to this man. Miss, you're really amazing. Not only do you know alchemy, but you also have good culinary skills. Not only are these medicinal cuisines delicious, but they are also very beneficial to the human body. Ruizhu watched Shi Lanling put the delicacies she had personally prepared into the lunchbox and immediately spared no effort in praising her. If any man marries you in the future, it would be a great fortune. Shi Lanling glanced at her. Shut up. Ruizhu giggled and said, in all honesty, I'm telling the truth. Which woman in the entire Yanwu continent could compare to you? This servant used to think that no man in the world was worthy of you, Mississippi. Fortunately, the Emperor appeared. I'm not good with words, so I don't know what to say. However, when you stand together with the Emperor, you look like a perfect match made in heaven. In this world, only the Emperor is worthy of Miss. Originally, Shi Lanling's most capable maid was Qing. Although Ruizhu wanted to curry favor with Shi Lanling, she couldn't find an opportunity. Now that Qing was finally sent to the 10,000 Humans cave, Ruizhu was so happy that she almost went crazy. At this moment, he naturally tried his best to flatter Shi Lanling, hoping to become her confidant. Stop right there. No one is allowed to enter the Ghost City's forbidden area without June's order. Outside the courtyard, two men dressed in Ghost City's attire step forward and block Shirlanling and Ruizhu's path. This courtyard is the one that Demingju and Mayan are currently living in. On the plaque above the courtyard's entrance, the words Emperor Garden were written in clerical script. How dare you! Your dog eyes are blind. Ruizhu immediately steps forward and arrogantly scolds the two guards. Can't you see clearly who our family's miss is? You actually dare to block our family's miss's way. I think you don't want to mingle in the Ghost City anymore. Hearing that, the guards stare blankly at Shirlanling. After seeing her face clearly, they immediately reveal an astonished expression. Sure. Shenzi. Chapter 349. In the entire Yanwu continent, there are only two people who can do alchemy. In the Ghost City, it is naturally regarded as a supreme existence like a treasure. It can be said that among the Ghost City's higher-ups, there is no one who doesn't know of Shirlanling. The guards inside the Emperor Garden were all Demingju's trusted aides. However, the guards around the Emperor Garden's periphery were borrowed from the Ghost City. Therefore, after Ruizhu yelled, the guard immediately recognized Shirlanling's identity. Seeing the change in their attitudes, Ruizhu revealed a smug expression. What are you waiting for? Since you recognize my young Mrs. identity, why aren't you moving out of the way? You will suffer for delaying my young Mrs. important matters. The guard is a little hesitant. But Juanshang, Ruizhu was about to get angry, but Shirlanling took a step forward and said in a gentle but distant voice, You don't have to be nervous. I came here this time to deliver pills to the Emperor. If you're worried, you can go in and report to the Emperor. The guard did not have time to reply. Ruizhu furrowed her brows and angrily cursed, You blind thing, do you know what pill my young miss is holding in her hand? That's the Yanwu continent's one and only 9 orifices golden dan. My family's miss has just refined it. It's precisely because I know that your majesty urgently needs this golden elixir of 9 orifices that I specially brought it here for your majesty. If the sovereign lord's matter is delayed because of you, the golden core will be delivered too late. Let's see how you'll face the wrath of the celestial emperor. Ruizhu's words made the already hesitant guards even more fearful and fearful. In addition, because of the whispers of the maids in the courtyard, many people know that Demingju has specially invited Shenzi from the Ghost City. He even sent the newly grown Dark Cloud's spirit flower to Shenzi to refine pills. Almost all of the maids and guards in the Emperor Garden believe that the Emperor treated Fairy Shur in a special way. If they didn't let him in now and incurred the displeasure of the monarch, none of them could bear the consequences. Thinking up to here, the guard clenched his teeth and bowed to make way. Shenzi, please come inside. I believe that Juanshang will definitely be very happy to see you. Early in the morning, in the courtyard, Mayan is dressed in a simple yet elegant blue dress. She doesn't put on any makeup as she lazily walks out of her room. Miss June. Ingmei sees her and immediately steps forward. Juanshang invites you to have breakfast. Mayan narrows her eyes, slowly saying, If I remember correctly, Demingju promised me that he would let me go today. Ahem. Ingmei blushed and said, Juanshang said that you will see the young master this afternoon. Now, please go and have a meal. Juanshang has been waiting for a long time. There was still half a day before she could go back to see her baby. Mu Yan curled her lips unhappily. She was in a very bad mood. It wasn't just because that bastard went back on his word, causing her to be unable to see Xiaobao for so long. It was also because the fat rabbit, who was originally lying in the space, suddenly sprang out. Before she could react, it disappeared without a trace. Although he didn't plan to stir-fry the rabbit meat now, it was still Xiaobao's spirit pet. He didn't know if Xiaobao would be sad to lose it just like that. Just as he was feeling vexed, he suddenly heard a loud shout behind him. "Hey! The two in front, wait up! Did you hear that? I'm talking to you too." Mayan and Ingmei have never been people who like to meddle in other people's business. Chapter 350. This infuriates Ruizhu, who was shouting. After she and Shi Lonling entered the Emperor Garden, they found that the Emperor Garden was very large, divided into 2 courtyards. Although the guards pointed them in the right direction, they still got lost in the courtyard. Unfortunately, this inner courtyard was empty, not even a shadow. Finally seeing Mayan and Ingmei, Ruizhu naturally called out to them. Who would have thought that these 2 insignificant servants would actually not put her and the miss in their eyes at all? Ruizhu rushed to Mayan and Ingmei in 2 or 3 steps, angrily rebuking, "Are you deaf? My miss told you to stop, didn't you hear?" Mayan raises her eyebrows, "Are you calling us?" As soon as Ruizhu saw Mayan's face, she was taken aback and couldn't even speak for a moment. Because the girl in front of her is really too beautiful. Especially that snow-white skin, and that pair of charming peach blossom eyes that don't smile, they're so beautiful that people can't take their eyes off her. That appearance is even more outstanding than her misses. Who is this person? Why is she in the Emperor Garden? Seeing that she doesn't answer, Mayan is about to leave. Ruizhu suddenly reacted and immediately shouted, "You're the servants of this courtyard, right? Quick, take my miss to see D. June." Mayan is wearing plain clothes today, and Ingmei is wearing the most common guard uniform. Therefore, Ruizhu immediately recognized them as maids and guards. As they spoke, Shi Lonling also slowly walked forward. Her clothes were the same as the plain dress. But the fabric of her clothes and the accessories on her body, which one of them isn't worth 1,000 pieces of gold? As she walked, the skirt of her dress fluttered, making her look elegant and otherworldly. Normally, in the ghost city, as long as Shi Lonling appears like this, everyone present, whether men or women, would be overwhelmed by her elegant demeanor. Some people would even prostrate themselves before her. However, today, Shi Lonling slowly walked forward, still as otherworldly as before, like an otherworldly blue lotus. But in exchange, Mayan and Ingmei only stared at her indifferently. Mayan looks at Ingmei, "Do you know them?" Ingmei shakes her head, "I don't. They're probably actors hired by Han Yi." "Miss June, let's not delay here any longer, Jun Shang is waiting for you." After saying that, he didn't even look at Shi Lonling and Ruizhu again and was about to leave. Lingren. 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 Shi Lonling felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She simply couldn't believe what she had heard. Wherever Shi Lonling, went, she would be sought after by tens of thousands of people. These 2 people actually dared to treat her as a performer. Ruizhu was so angry that her face was twisted. "You! What nonsense are you talking about? You 2 lowly maids, do you know who my miss is?" Ingmei looked at them coldly. The long sword in his hand is unsheathed, overflowing with murderous intent. "If you're not performers invited by Han Yi, then why can you come in? Don't you know that any outsiders who enter the Emperor Garden will be killed without mercy?" The icy killing intent and the powerful pressure caused Ruizhu's expression to change slightly. She staggered 2 steps back. It took him a lot of effort to stabilize himself. His already ugly expression became even fiercer. "Who the hell are you? Aren't you just 2 servants from the Emperor Garden? How dare you shout at my young Mississippi?" Chapter 351. Hearing Ruizhu's ghost city's esteemed guest. Mayan finally lifts her eyelids, looking over with a smile that isn't a smile. "Esteemed guest? You're Shi Lonling. Shi Lanling nods haughtily, about to speak. Abruptly meeting Mayan's face, her heart thumps. The appearance of this maid in front of her is really too outstanding. Although Shi Lanling is unwilling to admit it. But this lowly servant is actually more beautiful than her. How can she accept this? On the contrary, Ruizhu is the first to react. Raising her chin, she arrogantly says, "Since you know who my family's miss is. Still not leading the way. If you delay my family's miss and Jun Shang's meeting, I'm afraid that you two servants won't be able to bear the consequences." Ing Mei's face sinks, unable to bear it any longer. She's about to make a move. She can tolerate this so-called Shirshenzi humiliating her. But she can't stand Miss June being humiliated. However, Mayan stops Ing Mei's actions. "Want to see Jun Shang?" Her pink lips rise up into a pretty curve. "Since it's Shirshenzi's order, we will certainly obey." Pausing, her smile becomes more and more meaningful. "Presumably, when Jun Shang sees you, he will certainly be very happy." Ing Mei glances at Mayan in shock, looking anxious. Opening his mouth, he seems to want to say something. Ruizhu has already supported Shi Lanling, her face full of pride and pride. "At least you still have a bit of self-awareness. What are you still standing there for, still not leading the way?" Mayan smiles faintly, then turns around and heads in the direction of the dining hall. Ing Mei frowns and promptly follows. Shi Lanling glances at Mayan's back, a mocking smile appearing at the bottom of her clear and cold eyes. So what if she's beautiful? In the end, a servant is just a servant. Hearing her name, won't they still obediently give in? Doesn't this mean that Di Jun has always treated her differently? Otherwise, how could the servants of the Emperor Garden become so respectful and fawning after hearing her name? Thinking of this, a bashful and expectant smile appears on Shi Lanling's face. The three soon arrive at one of the small courtyards. This is also the place where Di Mingju personally cooked for Mayan that day. Shi Lanling could faintly see the tall and straight figure of the man through the open door of the small courtyard. Even from such a distance, she could feel the man's disdainful aura. Shi Lanling's heart was thumping non-stop. Her cheeks were dyed red. Her eyes, which were usually cold and indifferent, were now filled with passion and infatuation. When Ruizhu sees her miss's expression, she immediately steps forward and pushes Mayan and Ing Mei away. Pulling Shi Lanling along, he directly flits past the two people, heading straight towards Di Mingju. In the small courtyard of the dining hall, Di Mingju looks at the table of dishes that are slowly turning cold, his expression frighteningly gloomy. On the side, Han Yi is trembling with fear, wishing that he could immediately make a clean getaway. Unfortunately, he did not dare. What was Little Shadow doing? Why haven't they invited Miss June yet? Don't you know that in order to prepare this meal, Jun Shang got up early in the morning to get busy? This was because Miss June would only reveal a truly happy smile when she was eating delicious food. Suddenly, Han Yi sees a figure outside the courtyard, and his eyes brighten. "Jun Shang, it's Miss June has come." Hearing that, Di Mingju's expression doesn't change. Chapter 352. At the same time, Han Yi also sees Ing Mei's tall figure, and his heart unconsciously speeds up. Just as he was about to open his mouth to greet them, he saw Mu Yan and Ing Mei being pushed away. Because the action was too sudden, Ing Mei staggered a little. On the other hand, Mayan seems to have expected this, and leisurely retreats to the side. There's a smile on the corner of his mouth, like he's watching a good show. He watches as Ruizhu supports Shi Lanling, leisurely arriving in front of Di Mingju. "My daughter," Shi Lanling greets the emperor. A soft and crisp voice rang out. Shi Lanling bowed slightly, her skirt fluttering in the wind. She raised her small face, elegant and refined, with just the right amount of peach blossom blush. She was truly more beautiful than a flower, and her feelings were boundless. Han Yi shivers, goosebumps almost covering the floor. Could this Shirlanling speak properly? To him, she speaks coldly, and to Jun Shang, she speaks coquettishly, making him want to vomit. Hearing the voice, Di Mingju retracts his gaze from Mu Yan and falls on the beauty in front of him, Shirlanling. Whether it was his voice or his gaze, they were so cold that they could freeze someone to death. Shirlanling's maiden heart was beating wildly because of this handsome man who was so close to her. She didn't notice anything wrong at all. Her smile became more tender and shy, and her voice became sweeter and sweeter. Yes, I am. I'm here today to deliver the golden elixir of 9 orifices to you. When Shirlanling says these words, she's waiting for Di Mingju to ask in amazement, "You actually refined the 9 orifices golden pill?" Who knew that Di Mingju wouldn't even spare Shirlanling a glance, but coldly looks at Han Yi instead. Han Yi is swept by Di Mingju's cold and austere gaze, his legs almost go soft and he kneels down. Then, a voice as cold as azure from hell sounded, "Go to the purgatory pool and receive your punishment for 5 days." Han Yi suddenly feels his vision darken. The purgatory pool was a place where one would lose a layer of skin. Although the Yanwu continent's Ghost City's purgatory pool only has 1/10 of the power of the polar domain's purgatory pool. But it was still very, very scary. Lord, this subordinate has been wronged. Han Yi couldn't help but wail. This subordinate told her clearly that after the elixir is refined, this subordinate will go and take it myself. Di Mingju's voice doesn't rise or fall, but his expression becomes colder. 10 days. Han Yi shudders, no longer daring to quibble. He bows and mournfully says, "This subordinate accepts the order." Boo-hoo-hoo, ever since Jun Shang got to know Miss Mayan, he's become a lot more humane. So much so that he had almost forgotten how cruel and uncompromising Jun Shang was in the past. Shirlanling naturally heard the conversation between the two of them. Naturally, she doesn't have a good impression of Han Yi, this guard who has eyes on the top of his head. So what if he was the Emperor's trusted aide? She wasn't even a servant, but she was talking to her in such a cold and arrogant manner. But she wants to make a good impression in front of Di Mingju. So she immediately takes a step forward, with an anxious and guilty look on her face. Her limpid eyes look at Di Mingju. "Di Jun, please calm your anger. This little girl came uninvited because she was anxious to deliver the elixir to Jun Shang. This little girl knows that this 9 orifices golden dan is very important to Di Jun. If Di Jun wants to blame someone, then please blame this little girl. This matter has nothing to do with Han Yi, who knew that before Shirlanling could finish pleading for leniency, Di Mingju doesn't react, but Han Yi has already impatiently interrupted her. "Shixianzi, where's the elixir?" Chapter 353. Shirlanling's complexion immediately stiffens. With great difficulty, she manages to maintain a somewhat wronged expression, but it's also stubborn and proud as she looks towards Di Mingju. She was waiting for him to say something. However, Di Mingju doesn't even spare her a glance. His gaze is firmly fixed on a spot not far from the entrance. The expression on his handsome face becomes more and more gloomy. Han Yi impatiently says, "Shixianzi, didn't you say you came to deliver elixirs? What, you're not willing to take it out now that you're here? Don't tell me you haven't refined the golden pill of 9 orifices at all." Shirlanling clenches her teeth. She simply hates Han Yi to the extreme in her heart. A mere servant actually dared to treat her like this. But Han Ye's words have already reached this point, so Shirlanling can only take out the brocade box from her bosom. She deliberately avoids Han Yi, and steps towards Di Mingju. With every step she took, the bashfulness and anticipation on her face deepened. As long as she was a little closer to this man, a little closer, she would personally hand over the 9 orifices golden pill that she had refined. He would definitely have a whole new level of respect for him. However, when Shirlongling is about a meter away from Di Mingju, suddenly, he felt a gust of wind blow past him. Then, the brocade box in her hand disappeared. Han Yi holds the brocade box in his hand, respectfully handing it over to Di Mingju. Soon after, he looks at Shirlongling with a bit of ridicule. "I'm sorry, Shixianzi, my family's Jun Shang doesn't like outsiders to get close to him. Please stand a bit further away, lest you make my family's Jun Shang unhappy." Shirlongling's face was so stiff that it looked like it was about to twist. Han Ye's words can be considered pleasant to hear, but that expression and attitude, he was clearly saying, "Don't get close to Jun Shang, lest you make Jun Shang feel disgusted." She, Shirlongling, is the only alchemist in the Yanwu continent. When and where has she ever suffered such humiliation? Di Mingju takes the brocade box and opens it to take a look. After confirming that the elixir inside has the effect he wants, his expression softens a little. Han Yi immediately smiles and says, "Shixianzi, since the elixir has been delivered, you can leave now." This time, Shirlongling's face really twisted. But soon, she calmed down. Because from beginning to end, Di Mingju hasn't said a word. In Shirlongling's mind, all this disrespect and indifference towards her is nothing more than Han Yi acting on his own initiative. Therefore, she quickly takes the food box from Rui Zhu's hands, a gentle and virtuous smile hanging on her face. "Di Jun, this is the medicinal cuisine that I've personally made for you. The drafts and herbs that I've added are all very valuable. I hope that Di Jun doesn't dislike it." As he spoke, the food box was opened. The aroma of food finally filled the air. Because of the addition of special herbs, the aroma of these foods is even more enticing than the breakfast that Di Mingju personally made. Mu Yan, who was just leisurely watching the show, couldn't help but sniff and look at the food box. It looks quite delicious. Di Mingju is simply more familiar with Mayan's little expressions and movements than she is with herself. Seeing this scene, his face immediately turned frighteningly dark. Unfortunately, Rui Zhu still adds in a low voice, "Jun Shang, you don't know, but our Mrs. Medicinal Cuisine is famous throughout the entire Yanwu continent. How many people want to ask for a meal, and they spend hundreds of thousands of gold, but our Miss has never agreed." However, Rui Zhu did not finish her sentence. Di Mingju finally couldn't bear it anymore, and he strides in front of Mayan. Grabbing the girl's slender wrist, he pulls her into his arms. "How long are you going to stay there?" Chapter 354. Her tall nose wrinkled slightly, and her usually sparkling peach blossom eyes were watery. She looked inexplicably pitiful. Di Mingju's chest warmed up. He wanted to pull her into his arms, but he also felt sorry for her. His hand roughly and clumsily pressed on the tip of his slightly red nose and rubbed it. "How could you be so careless?" Mu Yan's nose is about to go crooked from anger. This bastard, he was clearly the one who pulled her, causing her to bump into him. And now he was blaming himself for being careless. But without waiting for her to refute, Di Mingju has already unyieldingly dragged her to the dining table. His voice was still cold, and his expression was still emotionless, but there was a hint of cloying gentleness in his eyes. "Do you know what time it is now? It's so late in the morning and you're still not having breakfast? Do you want to starve to death?" Mu Yan looks up at the sky. Jun Shang's ability to lie through his teeth is really getting stronger and stronger. It was only 7 in the morning, so where did the sun come from? Mu Yan touches her nose, sweeping her eyes over Shirlongling with a smile that isn't a smile. "Isn't this because I'm afraid of disturbing you and the beauty's rendezvous?" On the side, Shirlongling looks like she's seen a ghost as she glares at Mayan and Di Mingju. Wasn't this woman a servant? Wasn't she a servant? Why is the emperor, who treats me so bluntly, treating this woman so differently? Then he looks at Mayan's small hand that Di Mingju is holding tightly in his palm. Shi Lanling could no longer maintain the tranquility and otherworldliness in her eyes. Intense jealousy and hatred almost turned into flames of jealousy, spurting out from her eyes. She can't even get within 1 meter of Di Mingju. But how could this woman, this lowly woman, be so close to the emperor? What right does she have? Ruizhu was also dumbfounded. She was only halfway through her words of praise for her young miss, and now she felt awkward. She didn't know if she should continue. Jun Shang, this medicinal cuisine is really priceless. Others wouldn't be able to get it even if they begged for it, but young miss personally cooked for you and busied herself for an entire night. As soon as these words come out, Di Mingju and Mu Yan's attention is immediately pulled back. The reason was that Shi Lanling's medicinal cuisine was indeed very fragrant and very famous. In her previous life, Mayan had heard of the rarity and preciousness of Shi Xianzi's medicinal cuisine. Even Gong Qinchue had held it in high esteem, but she didn't have the chance to taste it. She couldn't help but sniffle and look into the food box again. However, just as she stretched her head over, her chin was grabbed by a thick palm. Her attention was forcefully pulled back to the man. "Do you really want to eat it?" The man asked slowly in a low and cold voice. Mu Yan nodded without hesitation. Shi Lanling and Ruizhu's faces, which had just eased up, suddenly froze again. The corner of Di Mingju's mouth hooks up into a shallow arc. His appearance was already extremely beautiful, so beautiful that it could take one's breath away. Now that he was smiling like this, he was like the blazing sun, dazzling like fireworks, and could even hook away one's soul. However, Mu Yan is only in a trance for a moment. She heard the man say in a cold and resolute voice, "You're not allowed to eat it." Shi Lanling's originally stiff expression immediately turns joyful, her pair of bright eyes looking towards Di Mingju. As expected, the celestial emperor could sense his feelings for him. He couldn't possibly allow a lowly servant to taint the medicinal cuisine that he had made with his own hands. But today, it was destined to be the day when Shi Lanling's face would be slapped resoundingly. Chapter 355. The man slightly narrows his eyes and leans closer to Mu Yan, slowly saying, "You're not picky at all. What kind of unclean and unfashionable thing, you dare to eat it?" After a pause, he coldly adds, "Is what Ben Jun personally made not comparable to these?" The man can be said to be somewhat gnashing his teeth as he says the last sentence. Mu Yan is dumbfounded. Wait a minute. Since when did the Yanwu continent's hard-to-find medicinal cuisine become something unclean and unfit for use? And Jun Shangdaran, you could compare with anyone else, but you actually compare cooking skills with a woman? Where's your integrity? It's just that the unhappy Jun Shang has no integrity. He doesn't wait for Mu Yan to react, and directly waves his hand to have the medicinal cuisine brought by Shi Lanling be given to the servants in the Emperor Garden's outer courtyard. He himself forcibly pulls Mu Yan to sit down at the table, and carries out the daily feeding work. Probably because she's used to being fed by Di Mingju these past few days. Mu Yan eats the delicious breakfast, completely without any discomfort. Even in her heart, there's a faint sweet joy that even she herself isn't aware of. As for where that sweet joy comes from, Mu Yan doesn't dare to delve into it. However, Shi Lanling, who has been slapped in the face again and again, can no longer control the shame and indignation that rises from the bottom of her heart. Her whole body can't help but tremble. Since she was born, she has never suffered such humiliation. Who is this woman? Who is she to snatch away her elegance, to snatch away her man? Just a mere servant, what right does she have? Shixianzi, please go back. The Emperor Garden does not entertain guests. Han Yi indifferently repeats his order to expel the guest. There's already a hint of impatience in his voice. He saw how this woman pushed Little Shadow just now. What kind of thing is that? Not even fit to carry Miss June's shoes. She actually has the nerve to think about their June Shang, she's so shameless. Who is she? Shi Lanling doesn't leave, but she forcefully suppresses the surging resentment in her heart, saying one word at a time, who is this woman? Isn't she a servant of the Emperor Garden? Just a mere servant, how could she? Servant? Han Yi sneers, interrupting Shi Lanling's words. His eyes are filled with ridicule. I'm afraid that Shixianzi is mistaken. Not only is Miss June not a servant, but she is also our Emperor Garden's most distinguished guest and even the future Empress of the Emperor Garden. If anyone dares to insult young Lady June, it is the same as insulting the Emperor Garden and insulting you, June Shang. Before Fairy Shi speaks, it would be best for you to think clearly about what you should say and what you should not. Mistress. Shi Lanling's voice suddenly rose, sharp and thin. But she immediately realized her gaffe and forced herself to calm down. Miss June, which Miss June? How come I've never heard of it? Suddenly, Shi Lanling's voice paused, and her pupils contracted slightly. Could it be that she's the Enchantress of Medicine, June Mayan, who's currently in the limelight in Tianyuan City? Wasn't she the legendary music doctor who could bring the dead back to life and snatch lives from the hands of the King of Hell? Han Yi immediately lifts his chin, a proud and smug look on his face, not bad. Although he already knew that Miss June wasn't simple. But he didn't expect that in just a few short days, Miss June would not only cause a sensation in Xi'an, but now that she's come to Tianyuan City, she even directly pierced through the sky of Tianyuan City. Chapter 356. Shi Lanling's face alternated between green and white. Across the hall, his gaze firmly falls on Mayan's face. His eyes are full of jealousy and unwillingness. It turns out that this woman isn't a servant, but the doctor that Qing has said was trying to seduce Di Mingju. The Enchantress Mu Yan. So what if he's a senior doctor? Without knowing how to concoct pills and medicine, no matter how formidable a physician was, he could only treat and save people. Unlike him, whose pills were unparalleled in the world. Not only could it heal, but it could also help martial artists raise their cultivation. What's more, Shi Lanling, was already at the middle heaven stage at such a young age. Regardless of appearance, strength, or status, he would not lose to this woman. Right now, Di Mingju is gentle and protective of her, but it's only because she's beautiful that he treats her as a plaything. How could a plaything be a match for a man as aloof as Di Mingju? One day, June Mayan will be tired of being played with, and she will be discarded. One day, the emperor would realize that only she was the most suitable for him, and only she was worthy of him. What was June Mayan? Could she refine the golden elixir of 9 orifices that the emperor needed the most? Shi Lanling's eyes lit up at the thought of the golden elixir of 9 orifices. Seeing that she won't leave no matter what, Han Yi impatiently steps forward to pull her away. However, Shi Lanling suddenly stepped forward and said in a gentle and concerned voice, "Emperor, Lanling suddenly remembered that I forgot to tell you about the golden elixir of 9 orifices." Just at this time, Di Mingju and Mayan have also finished eating. Di Mingju personally wipes the corners of Mayan's mouth and hands with a cloth, then he pulls her up. Hearing this, he couldn't help but look at Shi Lanling. Shi Lanling met the man's cold and exquisite eyes, that unparalleled handsome face, and her breathing suddenly became a little hurried. His voice was slightly stuttering as he said, "Emperor, the golden elixir of 9 orifices is extremely potent. Even a Khanate realm martial artist might be injured if he were to consume it." When you consume it, you must be careful. It would be best if Lan Ling stays by your side. If anything happens, Lan Ling can help you as an alchemist and doctor. Hearing that, Di Mingju raises his brows and releases Mayan's hand. With a flick of his wrist, the brocade box that Shi Lan Ling had just given him appeared in his palm. When the brocade box was opened, the golden pill of 9 apertures inside faintly emitted a refreshing medicinal fragrance. It was a little like the dark cloud's spirit flowers fragrance, but it seemed to have something more to it. Under everyone's gaze, Di Mingju picks up the pill and puts it into his mouth. Shi Lanling's eyes suddenly burst with excitement. Ha! Her guess was right. What the emperor really needed was a woman who was useful to him. So what if June Mayan has a charming appearance? Could she concoct pills like him? Would he be able to help her in her breakthrough as a sovereign emperor? How could a good-for-nothing woman compete with him? Shi Lanling thought to herself as she lifted her skirt and walked forward. Han Yi holds out his hand to stop her from approaching. However, Shi Lanling glared at him coldly. Didn't you see that the emperor has already taken the 9 orifices golden pill? Without me by your side, can you bear the backlash of the golden elixir of 9 orifices? Han Yi doesn't loosen his grip to let her go. Instead, he looks at her with a fake smile. That smile was indescribably sarcastic. It could even be said that it was pity. Shi Lanling frowned and was about to berate him. Chapter 357. Di Mingju puts the 9 orifices golden pill into his mouth, but after a few breaths. Suddenly, he grabs Mayan's waist and pulls her into his embrace. Then, he kisses those soft petal-like lips. Mu Yan's expression slightly changes, and she is about to struggle. What the hell was this man doing? Acting like a hooligan in public. However, in the next moment, she felt a cool and refreshing aura enter her body through their entwined lips and tongues. Shi Lanling's body stiffened as she stared at the scene in front of her. She was not a fool. She could sense that this was no ordinary kiss. Instead, Di Mingju is using himself to remove the domineering cold qi from the 9 orifices golden dan, and then transfer the purified and purest medicinal power to June Mayan. It could be said that the golden elixir of 9 orifices was a rare elixir that was hard to find in the world. However, even if the golden elixir of 9 orifices could be refined, it would still have flaws. However, Di Mingju spent countless manpower and resources to cultivate the dark cloud's spirit flower and other auxiliary drafts for Mayan. He even offered her a high price to refine the golden elixir of 9 orifices. Now, he was disregarding any possible damage to his body as he dispelled the cold aura of the pill. Just to let Mayan absorb the power of the 9 apertures golden dan. Why? Why did this man have to go through so much trouble for a lowly servant? Why didn't Di Mingju waste his thoughts on her? How is June Mayan stronger than her? On the side, Han Yi looks at Shi Lanling's unsightly complexion, and he's in a very good mood. However, on the surface, he was still all smiles as he said, "Shi Xianzi, look at my family's June Shang and my future wife, they're so affectionate as if there's no one else around. But it's not good for an outsider to watch from the side. Fairy Shi, please." This is the 3rd time that Han Yi has asked the guest to leave. This time, Shi Lanling and Rui Zhu had no reason to stay. Shi Lanling couldn't even stay a minute longer. The scene in front of her made her so embarrassed that she wanted to find a hole to hide in. Under Han Ye's guidance, she left the Emperor Garden like a walking corpse. If one were to say how shy and expectant she had been when she had first arrived, then when she left, she would be so ashamed and jealous. Then, this jealousy slowly turned into bone-deep resentment. If it weren't for June Mayan, Di Jun would certainly have a whole new level of respect for her. If it weren't for June Mayan, she wouldn't have suffered such humiliation today. Isn't he just a third-rate physician? He actually wanted to compete with her. He was simply daydreaming. Sure, Lanling's elegant face slowly twisted into a sinister and vicious expression. However, it only lasted for an instant before it dissipated completely, returning to its prideful state. On the other side, Hanyi very cleverly cleans up everyone present. The medicinal power of the 9 orifices golden elixir was purified little by little and passed into Mu Yan's body. After about a quarter of an hour, the effects of the medicine have completely passed through Mu Yan's body. Mu Yan feels that there's a melting heat rolling in her dantian. She reaches out, wanting to push Di Mingju away. Unexpectedly, the man hugged her even tighter and kissed her even deeper. Only when the skin all over Mu Yan's body starts to heat up, does Di Mingju reluctantly release the red and swollen lips that he kissed. Mayan fiercely glares at this shameless man. Was this bastard giving her medicine or taking advantage of her? It's just that Mayan doesn't know that not only does her blushing cheeks and coquettish glare not have any lethality, but it's also indescribably seductive. Chapter 358. He says in a cold voice, "If you don't sit cross-legged and circulate, the medicinal power of the 9 orifices golden dan will be wasted in vain." That tone is full of indulgence and tolerance, as if the one who was being unreasonable just now was Mu Yan. Mu Yan also feels the alternating hot and cold forces in her qi. She promptly sits down cross-legged. The mysterious energy within her body runs wildly, flowing through her limbs and bones. As the mysterious energy around Mu Yan increases, it becomes stronger and stronger. Melodious music faintly drifts through the air. Di Mingju raises his eyebrows, his always cold and unperturbed eyes reveal a touch of astonishment. Because when the music is ringing in his ears, he actually feels that the power within his body, so powerful that even he himself can't control, is faintly resonating. However, how is this possible? As he's bewildered, the sound of the zither becomes louder and louder, then gradually disappears. Mu Yan slowly opens her eyes from sitting cross-legged. There's no change in her expression or appearance, even the powerful internal force around her is completely restrained. But those pair of shimmering and exquisite peach blossom eyes, when they open, are frighteningly bright. Like the most magnificent treasure that was originally covered with a thin layer of dust. But now that the dust has been washed away, it reveals a bright splendor. Di Mingju looks at Mu Yan with a frighteningly hot gaze. His girl had always been alluring and radiant. Now, it makes people even more unable to move their eyes away. Di Mingju wishes he could hide her, so that only he can see and touch her. Mu Yan takes a deep breath and stands up from the ground, a faint smile on her face. The bottleneck that has shackled her for so long has finally been broken. Her cultivation has now reached the high pre-celestial level. In the entire Yanwu continent, it could be said that she has rarely met her match. And all of this is thanks to Di Mingju. Forcing her to stay here to plant the Dark Cloud Spirit Flower is for her sake. Giving the Dark Cloud Spirit Flower to Shi Lanling to refine pills is also for her sake. Looking up at the man's dazzlingly handsome face, Mu Yan says softly, "Di Mingju, thank you. Thank you for everything you've done for me. How can I, Jun Mu Yan, make you pay so much for me?" Di Mingju steps forward, wrapping his arms around Mayan's waist. Leaning forward, he slowly says, "Are you very touched by what Ben Jun has done for you?" Without waiting for Mu Yan to react, he continued, "Since you're so touched, then devote your life to me." Mu Yan, being touched is just a fleeting cloud. "Miss, are we leaving just like that? Let that woman seduce the emperor." Inside the Emperor Garden, Ruizhu was suppressed by Di Mingju's powerful aura to the point where she couldn't even speak properly. As soon as she left the Emperor Garden, she couldn't help feeling jealous and annoyed. What does that June Mayan count for? Isn't she just a newly rising third-rate doctor? How could he compare to her young miss? If the person favored by the emperor was her young miss, then she would naturally be able to stay by her young miss' side and look at that man's godlike appearance every day. Thinking of this, Rue Ju's cheeks became a little red, and a misty look appeared in her eyes. Shirlanling looked at her coldly and was about to open her mouth to curse. Suddenly, a white light flashed. Rue Ju and Shirlanling screamed in unison. Shirlanling felt a sharp pain on her left cheek, and her shoulder was hit by a heavy force. She staggered 2 steps, and with great difficulty, she stood firm. She touched her face with her hand. Chapter 359. Rue Ju looked up and saw a snow-white fat rabbit somersaulting in the air before falling to the ground. On its furry face, a pair of small mung bean eyes stared coldly at Shirlanling. Obviously, it was just a harmless little animal, but being stared at by such a pair of eyes gave her an inexplicable creepy feeling. Shirshenzi, what happened? The movement here attracted the guards at the entrance of the Emperor Garden. When he saw the wound on Shirlanling's face, the leader of the guards exclaimed, "Shirshenzi, your face." Shirlanling's white left cheek was scratched 3 times. Although these 3 cuts were not deep, they were still bloody, extending from her temples to her lips. This caused Shirlanling's originally elegant and refined face to become somewhat sinister. Shirlanling took a deep breath and slowly calmed her emotions. She pointed to the fat rabbit and said, "Catch that beast for me." The guards were stunned. They heard Rue Ju shout from the side, "It's that beast that scratched my family's young lady's face. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and catch it." This time, the guards no longer hesitated and directly rushed towards the fat rabbit. They did not know what happened in the Emperor Garden's inner courtyard. They thought that Shirlanling was really an important guest of the Emperor. Now that Shirshenzi was injured at the entrance of the Emperor Garden, if they did not help, they would not be able to bear the consequences if the Emperor blamed them. The fat rabbit saw more than a dozen fierce people rushing over. Making a prompt decision, it twisted its buttocks, turned around, and jumped. Its fat body drew a round arc in the air and eventually fell into a small embrace. It turned its head in the small embrace. The fat rabbit glanced at the people rushing over with disdain. It was now a rabbit with the support of its young master. These people wanted to bully it. No way. Bah! It was not a rabbit. The fat rabbit rolled its eyes helplessly. It must have followed the female devil for too long. It had almost forgotten that its real body was not a stupid rabbit, but the guards did not expect that they would work together to catch a rabbit, but they still failed to catch it. Their eyes all looked in the direction the fat rabbit had jumped. Then they all froze. They saw that the one holding the rabbit was a little boy about 4 or 5 years old. It was just that this little boy was too handsome. He was like a fairy that had fallen into the mortal world, making people want to give him all the best treasures in the world. However, when the guards met the little boy's eyes, they shuddered inexplicably. His ice blue eyes seemed to be frozen with frost, cold and disdainful. He was clearly so young, but he made people want to submit to him. The person standing closest to Jun Shang even has a strange feeling of being stared at by Jun Shang. Young master, please hand over the rabbit in your hand. The guards finally managed to recover from their shock but still spoke with some trepidation. This rabbit injured my Emperor Garden's honored guest. We need to give our honored guest an explanation. Xiao Bao looked up at the guard who had spoken, then shifted his gaze to Shirlanling's face. The 3 scars left by the fat rabbit were very obvious and bloody. The fat rabbit also looked over and was very satisfied when he saw his masterpiece. Its short tail wagged, and its little green bean eyes sparkled. Humph, it smelled that the woman had the same disgusting smell as the bad woman who destroyed the dark cloud's spiritual flower. Chapter 360. Perhaps she was the miss that the bad woman mentioned. Although the fat rabbit was afraid of the female devil was the little master's mother after all and the little master's favorite person. How could he be bullied so easily? Therefore, when it saw Shirlongling today, it immediately pounced on her. It wanted to avenge the she-devil first. Anyway, with its little master around, it was not afraid of anything. Xiao Bao lowered his head and looked at the smug fat rabbit. She slapped its chubby butt with her little hand. Xiao Bao was a good child. Nyangqin said that if you did something wrong, you should apologize. Although the one who scratched him was the fat rabbit, who asked the fat rabbit to be his pet. Nyangqin said that since he raised a pet, he had joint responsibility. Therefore, after Xiao Bao hit the fat rabbit, he grabbed its neck and walked in front of Shirlongling. Sorry. My pet hurt you, I can give you a bottle of medicine, I promise. She said in a childish voice. Do you think a bottle of potion is enough for you to hurt my young lady? Rui Zhuge shouted in disbelief, if you know what's good for you, then quickly hand over the little bastard in your hand. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. Shirlongling, on the other hand, did not make a fuss like Rui Zhuge. But her eyes were also very cold. His gaze that seemed to be dipped in poison landed on the fat rabbit's body, wishing that he could immediately skin it and tear its bones apart. Little Gongzi, you are young and insensible. I can forgive you for letting your pet hurt me. But since this pet hurt me, I have to deal with it. Xiao Bao frowned and looked up at Shirlongling. Auntie, how do you want to deal with this? Auntie. Auntie. What? What did you call me? Shirlongling's voice rose uncontrollably. She simply couldn't believe her ears. Xiao Bao raised his eyebrows, but his expression remained cold. Auntie, is there a problem? Xiao Bao remembers his mother's words very well. Mother said that when you see a beautiful girl, you should call her big sister. If he saw a beautiful girl older than his mother, he would call her auntie. The two women in front of her were older than her mother. They weren't beautiful, and the aura they exuded made people dislike them. Just like those talkative aunties that the people of the Ink camp hate the most. So, calling this woman in front of him auntie was not a problem at all. Shirlongling took a deep breath, then another deep breath. He told himself over and over again not to bother with a child. However, the anger in her eyes had already made her unable to maintain her lofty and aloof fairy appearance. Xiao Bao saw that Shirlongling did not speak. He felt that he should express the sincerity of his apology. Therefore, he took out a bottle of medicine and handed it to Shirlongling. This bottle of medicine is also refined by Mayan. If it was placed in the Ghost City or Junji drugstore, it could be sold for a sky-high price. Xiao Bao now gave it to Shirlongling for free, thinking that the sincerity of his apology was enough. Shirlongling took the medicine but didn't apply it on the wound. Instead, she looked at it with disdain, raised her hand, and smashed the porcelain vase onto the ground. Rui Zhu sneers, do you know that my family's miss is the best alchemist and alchemist in the Yanwu continent? You want to appease my miss anger with a mere draft. Kid, are you dreaming? Shirlongling's expression was cold and arrogant. She looked down at Xiao Bao from above. I'll say it again. Hand over the animal in your hand and I won't bother with you. Chapter 361. The already cold little face becomes even colder. That pair of clear eyes also recedes all the warmth, just like an icy abyss. All the drafts on Xiao Bao's body were painstakingly refined by Nyangqin. Because she was afraid that he would get hurt, she always carried a lot of them with her. However, Xiao Bao is usually reluctant to use them, because he doesn't want his Enchanting to refine another bottle. However, this woman actually smashed the drafts that Enchanting refined. The fat rabbit seems to feel its little master's anger, and it lets out a beast-like howl. All the white hair on its body stands up, itching to rush out at once. Xiao Bao suppresses his anger, holding the fat rabbit in his arms, and coldly says, "What if I don't hand it over?" Shi Lanling was startled when she met his cold eyes. There's a faint fear growing in her heart. But then, her complexion becomes very unsightly. A 4 or 5-year-old child actually scared her. That kind of shame reminds her of the humiliation she just received in the Emperor Garden. Moreover, looking at it now, she feels that this child looks a bit similar to Jun Mayan. This makes Shi Lanling more and more disgusted, and she even has a faint murderous intent. "You!" Shi Lanling turns to the Emperor Garden's guards and says, "Capture that beast for me, dead or alive." The guards look at each other, somewhat hesitant for a while. After all, that's a 4 or 5-year-old child. They are a group of grown men, and they want to make a move on a child. Shi Lanling's face immediately sinks. "You want to disobey my Shi Lanling's orders?" Ruizhu also chimes in, "Don't forget, my family's miss was injured at the entrance of the Emperor Garden, right under your noses. If you don't give an explanation today, not to mention Di Jun not sparing you, there will no longer be a place for you in the Ghost City." Hearing Ruizhu's words, the guards' faces immediately change. They all know how high Shi Lanling's status is in the Ghost City. And for them, being guards of the Emperor Garden is only temporary. In the end, they will have to go back to the Ghost City to make a living. If they offend Shirshenzi, then they really won't be able to bear the consequences in the future. Thinking of this, the guards no longer hesitate and directly rush towards Xiao Bao. He had thought that a 4 or 5-year-old child would panic or even cry in the face of such a sudden change. However, Little Treasure's expression didn't change from beginning to end. He just raised his hand and threw the fat rabbit to the side. He even had the time to coldly warn, "If you cause any more trouble, I'll turn you into stir-fried rabbit meat." Enchanting has always been thinking about it. The fat rabbit shrank its neck and curled itself into a ball. He had a pitiful look that said, "I was wrong, I won't dare to do it again." The guard's eyes lit up when he saw Xiao Bao throw away the fat rabbit. If he didn't attack the child and directly handed the rabbit over to Shirshenzi, then everyone would be happy. At the thought of this, one of them pounced at the fat rabbit like a bolt of lightning. The rabbit lying on the ground was motionless, like a furry ball. The guard was about to grab the spear. Suddenly, a powerful Xian Qi surrounded his body. Then, before he could react, he felt a sharp pain in his lower body. He immediately let out a miserable howl like a pig being butchered, and his whole body was ejected like a cannonball. He flew straight for more than 10 meters before landing on the ground. He clutched his crotch, wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf, unable to get up again. Chapter 362. His icy blue eyes didn't waver in the slightest, coldly sweeping over everyone. The other guards suddenly felt their balls tighten, clamping their legs. After a cup of tea's worth of time, all the guards in the Emperor Garden's outer courtyard were prostrating on the ground, screaming like pigs being butchered. Only Xiao Bao still stood there with an indifferent expression, his handsome little face devoid of any expression, his clothes without a single wrinkle. It was as if the person who had just knocked down 7 or 8 high-level martial artists wasn't him. The fat rabbit happily wagged its short tail and jumped into Xiao Bao's arms. Its mouth issued a flattering whine, "Little Master is the best. Long live Little Master. I want to follow Little Master for a lifetime, hug Little Master's thigh and never waver." Shi Lanling stared dumbfounded at the scene in front of her, almost unable to believe her eyes. A child of only 4 or 5 years old actually knocked down the Emperor Garden's guards. And each one of these guards is an elite of the Ghost City. Each one of them can become an outstanding and famous expert in the outside world. However, these people were knocked down by a 4-year-old milk baby. Moreover, they were knocked down without any ability to resist. This milk baby, who the hell is he? Rui Zhu was horrified, looking at Xiao Bao, then at the wailing guard on the ground. Miss, this, Shi Lanling took another deep breath, pushed away the flustered Rui Zhu, and walked towards Xiao Bao step by step. Her face had regained its usual arrogance and indifference, aloof, like a fairy. But the hideous scar on her face destroyed her temperament. It made her whole person look gloomy. Shi Lanling walked in front of Xiao Bao, condescendingly looking at him and the rabbit in his arms. I didn't want to attack a child, but you forced me. She paused. I'll give you one last chance. Give me the animal in your arms, and I'll spare your life. Spare his life, but the death penalty can be avoided, but the punishment cannot be forgiven. Shi Lanling was becoming more and more displeased with this little boy, more and more disgusted. Therefore, she would never let him off easily today. The corner of Xiao Bao's mouth gently hooked up, his handsome little face revealing a cold and sarcastic smile. Auntie, you talk too much. If you want to fight, just fight. Why are you so long-winded? Shi Lanling's complexion turned pale. She looked at Xiao Bao with a gaze as cold and malevolent as a viper's. Since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. Although Xiao Bao had defeated the guards in the Emperor Garden's outer court, Shi Lanling never felt she would lose. She was a heaven-rank expert. He didn't make a move because he didn't want to lower himself to argue with a little kid. But this little boy in front of her was simply too disgusting. Today, she would let him have a taste of the consequences of offending her. Shi Lanling struck out with her palm, and a powerful dark force circulated in the air. Strands of strange bluish-green light shrouded the space between his fingers. If a knowledgeable person saw this scene, they would definitely be terrified. Because Shi Lanling had not only used 90% of her Xian energy in this palm strike, but she had also mixed the deadly poison, white jade purple frost powder, into the palm chi. This kind of poison would not kill the person immediately, and it would not kill them immediately. However, it could destroy a person's meridians and qi, causing them to suffer and finally walk towards death in pain. At this moment, Shi Lanling even forgot that she had to deal with the rabbit that injured her face. He only wanted Xiao Bao to pay a painful price. Chapter 363. Awoo! The fat rabbit felt the horror of the white jade purple frost, and all its hair stood on end. It desperately cried out, hoping that the little master would quickly escape. But Xiao Bao's expression was still so cold, as if he didn't know that danger had arrived. The little white and tender palm pushed out, and all the profound energy in his body gathered in the palm. Shi Lanling's eyes revealed a cold smile. In her eyes, the annoying child in front of her has already become a corpse. Bang! An earth-shattering collision of profound energy, mixed with a hurricane-like airwave, swept the area of 10 meters around the entrance of the Emperor Garden. Shi Lanling's whole body flew back several meters, and it took her a lot of effort to stand still. But she only felt the blood in her body churning, and the blood almost rushed to her throat. Her eyes widened, looking at the little boy who also retreated, but only a few steps back. Her eyes were filled with horror. She was a dignified high-rank heaven stage ancient martial artist. In the collision of profound energy, she actually lost to a 4-year-old child. How is this possible? How is this possible? But immediately, Shi Lanling calmed down. The horror on her face turned into ridicule and resentful pity. I don't know what method you used to fight evenly with me with profound energy. But you are destined to pay the price for offending me today. Rollercoasters slowly said, the resentment and coldness in her eyes completely unconcealed at this moment. I will also find out your family background, and make your parents pay the same price. I want you to know that offending me, Rollercoasters, is an unwise choice. And all this is because your parents didn't teach you well. Xiao Bao's originally cold face finally showed a trace of anger. This woman is really, really hateful. Xiao Bao could tolerate anything she said to him. After all, it was the little rabbit who did wrong first. But this annoying old woman first broke the elixir that his mother had painstakingly refined. Now she said that she would make a move against his mother. This Xiao Bao absolutely would not allow it. The clear blue eyes, like the sky, turned into a cold and ruthless ice blue. Xiao Bao slowly raised his hand, his eyes full of decisive killing intent. He knew that the woman in front of him had the same cultivation base as him, mid-rank heaven stage. But it was far longer than him advancing to mid-rank heaven stage. However, Xiao Bao was not afraid of her at all. It just so happened that he also wanted to try and see just how powerful the cultivation method taught by that lecture was. Her fair and tender palms slowly formed a seal in front of her chest. The xian qi of heaven and earth was slowly stirred by the movement of his fingers. A terrifying power gradually took shape around Little Treasure. However, at that moment, the Emperor Garden's gates suddenly opened. A cry of surprise came from inside the door, Xiao Bao. Xiao Bao suddenly turned around and saw a beautiful figure walking out of the courtyard. What Rollercoasters? What anger? He couldn't care less. Her small body soared up like a bird, and she threw herself into the arms of the person who had just arrived. Mother! Xiao Bao's voice was very high, and even slightly hoarse and trembling. After throwing himself into Mayan's embrace, he hugs her neck even more tightly, unwilling to let go even in death. Mu Yan also held Xiao Bao tightly in her arms. Smelling the cool and milky fragrance that had yet to recede from Xiao Bao's body, the rims of her eyes immediately became wet. Ever since her baby was born, they had never been apart for a single day. This time, they hadn't seen each other for 7 whole days. Chapter 364. Unfortunately, her heart is aching and full of pity. So much so that she opens her mouth for a long time, but can't say a word. Enchanting, I miss you so much. Xiao Bao rubs Mu Yan's neck with all his might, and sniffles, forcing himself not to let the tears come out. That lecture said that he's already a man, he can't cry, and he can't let his mother worry. Mu Yan's voice is hoarse. Enchanting also misses you so much. Di Mingju, who had come out with Mu Yan, coldly snorts when he sees this scene. It's like a sea of vinegar has turned over in his heart. This heartless woman, she hasn't seen him for a month, and she doesn't even miss him. She's almost completely forgotten about him. Now, she hasn't seen her son for 7 days, and she's already revealing her true feelings. Humph. One day, he will make this big and small one day without him feel like 3 autumns. Seeing that he's going on a long journey, she hugs him and cries, not letting him leave. Mu Yan slowly comes back to her senses with great difficulty, and gently touches her son's little face. She only feels that her son has lost weight in 7 days. Her heart is even more distressed. Xiao Bao, how did you get here? How have you been these days? As Mu Yan speaks, she examines Xiao Bao's body. Suddenly, she frowns, and her expression becomes incomparably cold. This is the white jade purple frost powder, how could you be contaminated with such a sinister drug? Xiao Bao immediately flattens his mouth and looks at Rollercoasters. His voice is still cold, but with a bit of grievance. Enchanting, they bullied me. In fact, Xiao Bao doesn't feel wronged at all. Because these people are no match for him, and he simply doesn't put them in his eyes. But Xiao Bao hasn't seen Mu Yan for too long, and he really misses his mother. He misses his mother caring for him, hugging him, kissing him, misses his mother protecting him all the time, supporting him. So when he sees Mu Yan, he can't help but want to act spoiled. The corners of Mu Yan's mouth slowly hooks up into a shallow arc. Her originally bright and beautiful appearance instantly becomes even more charming and moving. But the people who are swept by her gaze can't help but shiver. It's you, bullying my son. The guards, who have been beaten up, have just stood up from the ground. When they meet Mu Yan's gaze, they are all drenched in cold sweat. He even felt like crying. They were the ones being bullied. Han Yi comes out from behind Di Mingju. He first greets Xiao Bao, "Greetings, little Gongzi." He then turned to the Emperor Garden's guards and asked in a cold voice, "What the hell happened? Have you eaten a bear's heart or a leopard's gall? How dare you attack little master?" Hearing Han Ye's words, the guards simultaneously look like they've been struck by lightning, each and every one of them dumbfounded. What? Young master. Could it be that this extraordinarily beautiful little boy was the Emperor's child? Everyone's line of sight turns towards Mayan, Di Mingju and Xiao Bao. What he saw was incredible. Xiao Bao's facial features resemble Mayan. However, that pair of blue eyes seemed to be carved from the same mold as the Emperor. When the three of them stood together, they looked like a harmonious and beautiful family. Moreover, how could a 4-year-old child be so powerful? A single person was able to take down a large group of strong men. Because that was their young master, the son of their most terrifying emperor. This time, not only did the guards want to cry, but they also wanted to kill themselves. Chapter 365. At this time, regret is really like a torrential river, flowing without end. Unfortunately, it's too late for regrets. After Han Yi listens to the guard's narration of the whole process, he turns to look at Xiao Bao. His cold and stern face is immediately filled with a smile. "Little master, how do you think these people who offended their superiors should be dealt with?" Although Xiao Bao is the child of Miss Mayan and her ex-husband, Han Yi knows that in order to pursue Miss Mayan, Jun Shang has long regarded Xiao Bao as his own son, even cultivating him as the successor of the polar domain. Moreover, he doesn't know why, but Han Yi always feels that Xiao Bao and his Jun Shang are very similar in terms of aura. If he wants to serve Xiao Bao as his master in the future, he doesn't have the slightest psychological pressure. Therefore, he doesn't even ask Jun Shang about the matter of dealing with the guards, but directly asks for Xiao Bao's opinion. Sure enough, Jun Shang doesn't object at all. He even condescends to throw him a look of appreciation, making Han Yi almost feel overwhelmed by the favor, suspecting that he's seeing things. Xiao Bao hugs Mayan's neck, looking at Di Mingju, then back at Mayan. He sees Mayan looking at him with a smile, without any intention of stopping him. He blinks his big watery eyes, and says with a straight face, "Do they get a salary?" Han Yi stares blankly, not understanding Xiao Bao's train of thought for a moment. He blankly nods, "Of course. The servants of the Emperor Garden, they don't just have a salary, their treatment is simply heaven-defying." Xiao Bao nods in all seriousness. Each person will be penalized with a year's salary, and have it delivered to the Junji Medical Center within 3 days. That's it. The guards have an incredulous look on their faces. No whipping, no crippling of their cultivation, not even losing their position in the Emperor Garden. Xiao Bao disdainfully glances at them. "You think it's not enough?" "It's enough, it's enough." The guards are overjoyed, and they fall to their knees. "Many thanks for the little master's forgiveness. Within 3 days, we will certainly deliver all the salary. It's just a year's salary, it doesn't matter even if it's 3 times. Xiao Bao turns to look at Mayan, his big eyes bright. Nyangqin, all the salary is for you. Do you like it? Mayan smiles until her eyebrows are curved, unspeakably gentle. Thank you, baby. Nyangqin likes it very much. A faint smile appeared on Xiao Bao's cold face. Her cheeks were rosy, and she looked indescribably cute. Han Yi silently glances at the cold-faced Jun Shang. He couldn't help but wail in his heart, Miss Jun, young master, what kind of salary do you want? Isn't this salary given by our Jun Shang? As long as you bind our Jun Shang, the rare treasures under the heavens will be yours to pick. The guards who had escaped punishment climbed up from the ground in joy. Suddenly, as if he had thought of something, he stole a glance at Shi Lanling, lowered his voice, and repeated what Shi Lanling had just said. When she finds out that it was Shi Lanling who infected Xiao Bao with the white jade purple frost powder, Mayan's expression suddenly turns frighteningly cold. This woman actually wanted to kill Xiao Bao. If it weren't for Xiao Bao's special physique, the poisons of the Yanwu continent could do nothing to him. Perhaps by now, Xiao Bao would already be seriously injured. As soon as she thinks that Xiao Bao will be hurt, Mu Yan can't control the violent killing intent boiling within her. However, without waiting for Mayan to react, Di Mingju is already slowly walking towards Shi Lanling. Shi Lanling's entire person is lifeless. Even if she were to die, she wouldn't believe that Di Mingju and Mayan already had an illicit relationship, and even had a bastard child. Chapter 366. What's more, the intimate scene of the three people just now really stings her eyes, and it also stings her heart. At this time, she sees Di Mingju walking towards her step by step. Shi Lanling's eyes can't help but redden, tears rolling down. Di Jun, you... Before she could finish speaking, Di Mingju has already interrupted her. Did you just say that Ben Jun didn't teach my son well? You still want Ben Jun to pay the price? Di Mingju's expression is very cold and indifferent, it could even be said to be indifferent. It's as if he simply doesn't care about anything in this world. And a mere Yanwu continent, he really doesn't need to pay attention to it. But it's this kind of indifference, that gaze that's like looking at an ant, that makes Shi Lanling's affection turn into fear in an instant. She opens her mouth, her voice trembling. Di Jun, I didn't know that was your. Once again, her voice hasn't fallen. Di Mingju doesn't even move his hand, but Shi Lanling screams. Her whole body soars into the air and falls to the ground. When she raises her head, everyone sees that her cheeks are swollen up. Coupled with the scar left by the rabbit, her originally elegant appearance suddenly becomes too horrible to look at. Di Mingju condescendingly looks at her, his expression carrying a hint of ridicule. Ben Jun's son, is he someone that you are qualified to teach a lesson? Shi Lanling covers her red and swollen face, her eyes filled with disbelief, fear, grief, and indignation. She sees that Di Mingju is about to make his move again. She couldn't bear it anymore, crying and shouting, Jun Mayan, don't go too far. It was clearly you who first instructed that animal to ruin my face. I just wanted to punish that animal, but your son refused, and even spoke ill of me. What's wrong with me teaching him a lesson? Hearing that, Mayan glances at the fat rabbit. The fat rabbit shivers a bit, then it jumps away and disappears. Actually, it has entered the space. It also knows that it has done something wrong. Although it doesn't regret it, it's also extremely afraid that the female devil will turn it into stir-fried rabbit meat. Xiao Bao slightly flattens his mouth, his voice gloomy. Nyangqin, I apologized to Bunny, and also gave her the medicine that Nyangqin refined, but... Not only did this woman not want it, she even smashed the bottle. Xiao Bao didn't continue, but Mu Yan looked at the broken porcelain vase at the door and the lingering medicinal fragrance in the air, and she knew what had happened. Mu Yan kissed Xiao Bao's face and said softly, Xiao Bao did the right thing. If you do something wrong, you have to apologize. But if you're bullied, you can't not retaliate. Hearing this, little Bao's dim blue eyes lit up. Mayan's line of sight turns and falls on Shirlanling. The corner of her mouth holds a faint and cold smile. Shixianzi, I'm very sorry that my spiritual pet hurt you. But don't you think you've gone too far by trying to kill my son with the white jade violet frost powder? Hearing the words, white jade purple frost, the faces of those guards in Hanyi change. This is a famous sinister medicine in the Yanwu continent. It could torture people for a long time before they walked towards death in despair. Shirlanling was called a fairy, but she used such a sinister thing to deal with a child. This is going too far. Shirlanling's expression changes greatly. She didn't expect that June Mayan would actually recognize the white jade purple frost powder at a glance. Especially when she comes into contact with Di Mingju's cold and murderous gaze, she shudders all over. But she quickly forces herself to calm down. Chapter 367. Saying that, Shirlanling looks at Mayan, her eyes sincere. Miss June is also a woman, so surely you know how important appearance is to a woman. If you were the one who got your face hurt, would you not be angry? But I was just angry for a moment and wanted to punish your young master. I definitely had no intention of killing him. Mu Yan's brows lightly raised, full of ridicule. Use the white jade purple frost powder as a small punishment to warn others. That's right. The white jade purple frost powder is highly toxic, but I am an alchemist as well as an alchemist. Shirlanling shows a contemptuous and proud expression. When it comes to alchemy, I believe that there aren't many in the entire Yanwu continent who are better than me. After punishing the young master, I can naturally help him detoxify the poison of a mere white jade purple frost. Pausing, she looks at Di Mingju and says, this is also the reason why I don't dare to use the draft that the little Gongzi gave me. Although Miss June is the newly famous Enchantress of medicine, when it comes to refining pills, I'm afraid she's still far from my level. Otherwise, you wouldn't have asked me to refine the golden pill of 9 orifices for you. After saying this, Shirlanling sneers at the change in Mayan's expression. This kind of reminder is blatantly telling Mayan that she is far stronger than her in terms of alchemy and alchemy. So what if she hooked up with the emperor and gave birth to a bastard? When she was in the ghost city, she didn't hear the news of Di Jun getting married. Han Yi also said that June Mayan was only the future mistress of the emperor garden. In other words, Di Mingju was only temporarily bewitched by this woman. As long as June Mayan and her son were eradicated, the position of Emperor Garden's mistress would still be hers. Shirlanling's innate talent had been awe-inspiring since she was young, and her schemes were deep. If he knew what he wanted, he would get it even if he had to resort to any means necessary. Therefore, even though she was in a sorry state, her heart was filled with hatred. However, she also immediately adjusted her state, trying in vain to firmly suppress Mayan, making Di Mingju realize that she is the most suitable mistress of the Emperor Garden. Shirlanling's words really make Mu Yan very unhappy. Because there was one sentence that Shirlanling was right. She did not know how to concoct pills. And Di Mingju wants to refine the 9 orifices golden pill for her, but he has to find Shirlanling. The dark cloud spirit flowers that she had painstakingly cultivated were all given to this woman. Everything made her feel as disgusted as if she had swallowed a fly. Shirlanling sees the change in Mayan's expression, and a ruthless complacency flashes through her eyes. I came here today to deliver the golden elixir of 9 orifices to you, Miss June. Who would have thought that she would encounter such an undeserved calamity and be disfigured? Although I can refine drafts to heal wounds, it would take at least 3 months for it to completely heal. She didn't finish her sentence, but the grievance and sadness in her words were clear. Those who didn't understand the cause and effect might really think that she was an innocent victim. Deming-ju feels Mayan's anger, and a murderous intent flashes through his eyes. He doesn't pay attention to Shi Lanling because in the entire Yanwu continent, besides Mu Yan and Xiao Bao, everyone else is like a stone or an ant to him. He simply doesn't need to pay attention to them, nor does he need to bother about them. But this woman actually attacked Xiao Bao, and even made Mu Yan unhappy. Then she might as well just die. However, Mayan suddenly pulls on his sleeve, and directly puts Xiao Bao into his arms. Chapter 368. One big and one small, the two of them look at each other in dismay, their expressions and movements unspeakably strange. At the side, Han Yi is even more dumbfounded. Jun Shang is actually holding a child. That's a real hug. Not carrying. But Mayan has already slowly walked in front of Shi Lanling. The corners of her mouth are slightly raised, her peach blossom eyes shimmering like water, like the clear radiance of the crescent moon, the snow-covered flowers and trees, so beautiful that it's suffocating. Shi Lanling's complexion suddenly freezes, her eyes shooting out a thick sense of jealousy. At this moment, she really wishes that she could scratch Mayan's face. Or, put this face on her own body. Shi Shenzi, you just said that it would take at least 3 months for the wound on your face to heal. Mayan doesn't seem to see the viciousness in Shi Lanling's eyes as she leisurely says, but unfortunately, I just refined a kind of draft a few days ago. It would only take 1/4 of an hour to heal after applying it on the wound. If the wound isn't deep, even the scar would disappear in 3 days at most. Hearing that, Shi Lanling couldn't help but sneer, Miss June, you're not dreaming, are you? I've been refining elixirs for so many years, but I've never heard of a draft that can heal a person's wound in 1/4 of an hour. Even if you want to brag about your abilities in front of Di June, you don't have to lie through your teeth, right? Saying that, she even glances at Deming-ju. Unfortunately, Deming-ju is clumsily adjusting his posture while holding Xiao Bao. He doesn't even spare her a glance. Shi Lanling grits her teeth, raising her voice once again, Miss June, you said that this draft can heal my wound in 1/4 of an hour, but what if it can't? What if my injury worsens instead? At that time, could it be that I have to bear the pain of being disfigured with just a light apology from you? Mayan chuckles and says, if it can't be done, Shi Shenzi can also make the same 3 cuts on my face. What do you think? Hearing this promise, Shi Lanling's eyes brighten at once. This is June Mayan bringing about her own destruction. When the time comes, even if she disfigured her face, she can't be blamed. Alright, then I'll try Miss June's draft, and see how miraculous it is. Shi Lanling doesn't believe that there's really a draft in this world that can heal her wound in 1/4 of an hour. Even if she were to refine the most expensive elixir, and then pair it with a draft for external application, it would still take at least 10 days. 15 minutes. Ha! Doesn't that mean that her wounds are healing at a speed visible to the naked eye? She wants to see how June Mayan will still have the face to seduce Deming-ju if she can't do it in a moment, and how will she face her disfigured self? Imagining such a comfortable future, Shi Lanling doesn't hesitate to take the draft that Mayan hands over. Without thinking, he smeared it on his wound. Because she was too excited and expectant, she didn't even notice that there were wisps of blue-green light twining around the bottle. White jade purple frost. The corner of Mayan's mouth hooks up into a faint and cold smile, and then slowly disappears. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. She would treat the wound caused by the fat rabbit's claw. She would naturally return the white jade purple frost that this woman wanted to use on Xiao Bao. Didn't Shi Lanling say that she could casually solve a mere white jade purple frost? Then she would try to solve it. Chapter 369. Now, she didn't even feel that her swollen cheeks and bloody wounds were scary. Because after a while, a wound 10 times uglier than this one will be replicated on Mayan's face. However, a moment later, Lonling suddenly felt that the wound on her face was a little itchy. She furrowed her brows and managed to stop herself from scratching it with her hands. However, that itch is getting worse and worse, making Lonling almost suspect that June Mayan is deliberately harming her. Just when she could no longer resist the urge to scratch, June Mayan's unhurried voice floats into her ears, "Shenzi, the wound will naturally be itchy and unbearable if it heals quickly. But in order to not leave a scar and affect the healing, I advise you to not use your hands to scratch it." Lanling's hand stiffened. She was about to retort. How could it heal so quickly? Suddenly, her eyes widened as she stared at the glass mirror in front of her. The wound on her face was actually healing. It was really healing. Moreover, as time passed, the numbness and itchiness on his face became more and more intense, but the speed at which his wounds healed was also getting faster and faster. Lonling didn't know how much time had passed, but it was definitely less than a quarter of an hour. The 3 scars on her face had already begun to scab. One strip even fell off, revealing new flesh underneath. But as Mu Yan said, although there were scars, they weren't deep. In less than 3 days, it would completely disappear. 15 minutes is up. Mayan curls up a strand of hair hanging by the side of her face, unhurriedly saying, "I wonder if Shenzi is satisfied with the healing of her wounds." Lanling's entire body stiffened. Her face was lifeless and overwhelmed with shock. She couldn't utter a single word. Ruizhu couldn't help but take a closer look. She couldn't help but shout, "Miss, your wound has really healed completely. How could this be? How could there be such a miraculous draft in this world?" Mayan sneers. She turns around and takes Xiao Bao from Di Mingju's arms, and kisses him on the cheek. "Humph, so what if you can refine pills?" Even if she didn't know how to refine pills, she could still throw this woman 10 streets away. But thinking that the 9 orifices golden dan she ate was refined by this disgusting woman, Mu Yan was still very unhappy. Wasn't it just refining pills? She did not believe that she could not learn it. As soon as Xiao Bao is in Mayan's arms, he immediately hugs her neck and says in a crisp voice, "Nyangqin's draft is the most powerful." This intimate appearance is completely different from when she was in Di Mingju's arms. Han Yi mockingly looks at the absent-minded Lonling. He didn't know if this woman was stupid or mentally ill. Why did he have to stick his face out to be slapped again and again? It's not enough for Jun Shang to beat him, he still wants to let little Gongzi beat him. The young master wasn't satisfied and wanted Miss June to hit him again. TSK, when a person starts acting cheap, there's really no saving him. Shenzi, now that your wounds have healed, may I ask if there's anything else? If there's nothing else, please leave quickly. Our Emperor Garden does not allow outsiders to approach. Lanling's body swayed, and she turned around to leave. But just as she was about to leave, Mu Yan suddenly said with a smile, "Oh, right, there's something I forgot to tell Shenzi. Just now, when I had Shenzi use the healing draft, I accidentally mixed in a wisp of white jade purple frost." Chapter 370. Saying that, without waiting for Lanling's reaction, he carries Xiao Bao and directly walks into the Emperor Garden. The Emperor Garden's door slams shut, and Lanling's eyes are all filled with horror. His body, which was already on the verge of collapsing, trembled in fear. White jade purple frost, that's a famous poison in the Yanwu continent. Who has the guts to say that they can easily cure it? Now that she's been poisoned by this white jade purple frost, could it be Could it be that her lifetime's cultivation is gone just like that? No. No. How could it be? June Mayan, you slut, how could you harm me like this? June Mayan. A hoarse roar mixed with bone-deep hatred spits out from Shi Lanling's mouth. June Mayan, Shi Lanling, swear that you will die without a burial ground. You want to go back to the Junji Medical Center. The man sitting at the desk slowly raises his head. There's no expression on his handsome face, but a pair of deep eyes are fixed on her. Mayan inexplicably feels that the heat in those eyes is somewhat astonishing. She also feels that the imposing manner of the man who has just raised his head carries an unfamiliar majesty. In fact, Mayan doesn't know what Di Mingju's identity is. But just by looking at his innate grace and nobility, as well as the look in his eyes that doesn't put any creature in the Yenwu continent in his eyes, she knows that this person's background must be extraordinary. Perhaps, it's not something that anyone in the Yenwu continent could bear. It's just that when Di Mingju is in front of her, he tends to show some childishness. Occasionally, he would even shamelessly act shamelessly. So much so that she often forgets that this man may have another side that she's completely unaware of. Ice cold, powerful, aloof, just like an emperor who rules over the world. Mayan composes herself, then reins back her thoughts. That's right, I've already bothered you long enough. The Junji Medical Center can't be left unattended, and my subordinates are also waiting for me to return. I think it's time for me to leave. Di Mingju's eyes darken, and he slowly gets up. As the man approaches, Mayan feels a burning and dangerous aura. However, just as she's about to step back, the man's deep voice comes to her ears. Good, you can go back. Mayan is startled, and subconsciously raises her head. Agreed. The person who had imprisoned her here and refused to let her leave actually let her go so easily. The corner of Di Mingju's mouth hooks up into a shallow arc. What? Actually, you don't want to go. Without saying another word, Mu Yan turns around and leaves. However, when she was about to board the carriage with Xiao Bao in her arms. However, he still couldn't help glancing over at the slowly closing Emperor Garden's gate. For some unknown reason, a trace of disappointment and loneliness surged into his heart. Mother. Xiao Bao's voice resounded by her ear. It was clear and melodious, yet it carried a trace of loneliness. Isn't that person coming to see us off? Even though she kept calling him a lecher and saying that she despised him. But when that person walked in front of that hateful woman and said, "This Lord's son is not someone you have the right to teach a lesson to," Xiao Bao felt his little heart thumping non-stop. A kind of pride and joy that he had never felt before welled up in his heart, making him flustered and bewildered. Even though the person he loves the most in the world is his mother, even though as long as he has his mother, he can do without anything. However, if Xiao Bao had a father, would he be like that person? Chapter 371. In the end, Di Mingju didn't come out, not even to send them off. The carriage the Emperor Garden had prepared for them was very large. The spacious space was more than enough to accommodate 7 or 8 people. There was even a bed at the back of the carriage so that Mu Yan and Xiao Bao could take a nap during the journey. Mu Yan thinks that she should let Xiao Bao sleep on the road. When they arrive at the Junji Medical Center, perhaps Xiao Bao won't be so disappointed. She would not be reluctant to part with that man. She sighed softly, opened the carriage door, and was about to enter. His gaze suddenly fell on the figure on the bed, and he was instantly dumbfounded. Di Mingju. Mu Yan unconsciously raises her voice. Why are you here? Di Mingju is reclining on the bed, his posture languid, his entire person brimming with seductive charm. His voice was so deep and magnetic that it could make people's ears pregnant. This is Ben Jun's carriage, why can't Ben Jun be here? No one knew who had closed the door of the carriage. With a creaking sound, the inside of the carriage became an enclosed space. The originally spacious carriage suddenly became extremely crowded. This was because almost every inch of the air was filled with the domineering aura of the man. Mayan composes herself, and says with a hollow laugh, "How could it be good to have Jun Shang send us back? Jun Shang, you'd better return." Mingju lifts his eyelids, lightly turning a page of the book in his hand. "Ben Jun didn't want to send you back. Then why did you come in?" Mingju turns another page of the book, his expression unspeakably natural. "Didn't you say you wanted to go home? This monarch will naturally go back with you." Saying that, he raised his eyes to look at Mu Yan and Xiao Bao. "Our family is together, how can we be separated?" "Mu Yan, I'd be a fool to believe you. Whose family with you?" Even little Bao's large and glistening blue eyes were opened wide as if she was complaining about his shamelessness. However, before the two of them could say anything, Mingju's slender fingers turn another page of the book. Just then, a thin piece of paper floated out of the book and landed on the ground. Mu Yan stares blankly, her line of sight shifts from that piece of paper to the book in Mingju's hands. Then, she made a shocking discovery. That book was in her space. Why did it fall into Mingju's hands? Could it be that she had taken the book out of the space and forgotten to put it back? Just as Mu Yan had this doubt in her mind, her attention was immediately attracted by the paper that was floating down. Only to see that Mingju is also slightly astonished. He stoops down to pick up the folded paper from the ground, slowly unfolding it. As the paper unfolds, a spark suddenly flashes through Mayan's mind. He finally remembered what this piece of paper was. His expression changed. "Don't open it." However, her words were still too late. Mingju unfolds the paper and sees the man reclining on the couch, his clothes half undone. He raises his eyebrows with interest. The corners of his mouth curled up into a joyful and deep arc. He turns the paper in his hand to face Mu Yan and Xiao Bao. "I didn't expect that you, Mu Yan, would actually be so obsessed with Ben Jun." Mu Yan's face burns fiercely. Even his son, who was in his arms, looked at him curiously. This painting is naturally the half-fortune and half-fruit painting that she made for Mingju. After she was done, she thought about tearing the painting up or throwing it away. Chapter 372. Mayan couldn't bear to throw it away, but she felt uncomfortable keeping it, so she folded it and placed it between the pages of the book. How could she have thought that Mingju would take her book, and as luck would have it, it's the one with the painting. But what kind of person was Mu Yan? Her panic only lasted for a moment before a faint smile appeared on her beautiful face. In the eyes of a painter, there is no difference between men and women, only whether a model is perfect or not. Jun Shang's appearance and figure are 1 in a million. After I entered the painting, I would occasionally take it out to admire it. Is there anything strange about that? Upon hearing this, Xiao Bao immediately nodded. Nyangqin also drew nude pictures of Liu Beiyu's bodyguards and the people of the Ink camp. What's so strange about adding another lecture? In the future, when he grows up and becomes strong and tall, he will also let his mother draw for him. Mingju's complexion stiffens, and he somewhat gnashes his teeth. This heartless woman. Could it be that in her eyes, Ben Juanshang is the same as her subordinates? Especially when he remembers the scene when he took Mayan away that day. More than a dozen men bare their chests and bellies in front of Mu Yan, and one of them even looks at him with a burning gaze. As soon as he thought of such a scene, Mingju couldn't wait to lock Yang Kai back into the Emperor Garden. Mu Yan sees that the man has suffered a setback, and her mood is finally at ease. She carried Xiao Bao and sat down on the bed. Before she could retract her smile, the man's tall figure suddenly approached her. He pressed Xiaobao against the wall of the carriage. A scorching breath blows on Mayan's face. Ben Jun dares to guarantee that after drawing Ben Jun's body, you will never look at another man's body again. Mayan, Ben Jun believes that from now on, you will no longer be able to lift your brush to paint like this. Unless the subject of your painting is me. The man's voice was resolute and decisive, and his voice contained an infuriating confidence. The veins on Mu Yan's forehead are throbbing, and she really wants to spit it back. However, she sadly realized that she couldn't refute him. After seeing Di Mingju's perfect body, if she were to draw another man's naked body, she really couldn't bring herself to do it. Damn it! This bastard really hit the nail on the head. As the three people go back and forth, the carriage returns to Tianyuan City, stopping in front of the Junji Medical Center. Such a large and luxurious carriage appearing in the Junji Medical Center very quickly attracts the onlookers inside and outside the medical center. Although Mayan has been missing for 7 days, the Junji Medical Center is still operating normally. It's just that if Mayan doesn't come, then the Junji Medical Center would lose its original advantage. One day, it would be squeezed out by other medical centers. Therefore, when he sees Mu Yan leading Xiaobao down from the carriage, whether it's the doctors or the patients in the Junji Medical Center, they all let out a cheer. Some of them came forward to welcome him, while others went in to call for help. In just a moment, a few figures rushed out like the wind. Miss! Young Master! Yen Yen! Before Mu Yan can react, she is hugged by someone. Shen Jinglin grabs her and looks her up and down for a while. After making sure that she's alright, he breathes a sigh of relief. Yen Yen, where did you go? Why did you leave for so long? Do you know how worried I am? There's also Xiaobao, he said that you told him to go find you. Such a small child, how could you let him act alone? Brother knows that you're all very powerful, but... As soon as Shen Jinglin sees Mu Yan, he starts to fire off a barrage of criticism. Chapter 373. Brother, I know I was wrong. Mayan grabs Shen Jinglin's hand and shakes it. Her face has a rare naive look like a young girl throwing a tantrum. Don't worry, how could I allow myself and Xiaobao to fall into danger? Ever since he was a child, Shen Jinglin couldn't do anything to his most precious little sister. So even though he's been on tenterhooks for 7 days, he can only dotingly tap her forehead, his face helpless. But this time, without waiting for Shen Jinglin to move, Mayan's collar is suddenly pulled by someone. She bumps straight into a hard embrace. Immediately after, the originally noisy entrance of the clinic immediately falls into a deathly silence, so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. Everyone's gazes are fixed on the person behind Mayan. Under the heavens, how could such a good-looking man grow up? Jade-like, extraordinarily handsome, and elegant, these kinds of adjectives seem to tarnish his temperament when used on him. The man is like a handsome and aloof god. Wherever he stands, that's where the throne of supremacy is. Shen Jinglin blankly stares at this man who carries his little sister away, and then embraces her body, each and every movement declaring his ownership. He only feels that his breathing has stopped. His mouth is slightly open, and he can't say a word for a long time. Yen Yen, this is... Mayan glares at Di Mingju. Does this man dare to grab her in another way? Every time he grabs her in Xiaobao's collars, does he think they're sacks? Di Mingju's reaction is to tighten his grip on her waist, clearly declaring his ownership. This one is Di Mingju, Mayan's fiancé. The man's voice is low and cold, but it's like a muffled thunder, smashing in the middle of everyone. Fiancé. Shen Jinglin suddenly raises his voice. When did you have a fiancé? Brother, don't listen to his nonsense, I didn't. Ah. Before Mayan could finish her words, the man pinches her chin, raises his head, and seals her little mouth. After a moment, Deming-ju releases her, and carelessly says, "Yen Yen, you and I have already had intimate skin contact, bathing together like mandarin ducks, don't tell me you still want to be irresponsible." The veins on Mayan's forehead bulge. Go to hell with your skin-to-skin contact and bathing together. You make it sound like the two of them have already done that. All she did was draw a painting of Bangwa, take off a few of his clothes, and soak in the hot spring pool together. That was all. Mu-yen felt that she couldn't think about it anymore. If these words were spoken, not only would they not be able to clarify the situation, her brother would even force them to get married immediately. Shen Jinglin looked at the scene in front of him and his body swayed. You, already. Shen Jinglin stutters for a long time, then he suddenly glares at Deming-ju. How dare you make a move on my little sister? How dare you? How dare you be so intimate with my little sister in public? I'll kill you, you lecher. Shen Jinglin was really anxious at this time. Anyone who saw their cute and obedient little sister being taken advantage of by a pig would be shocked. Moreover, it was in front of a large crowd. This was intolerable. He clenches his fist, concentrating 100% of his profound energy in the palm of his hand, and fiercely punches towards Deming-ju. However, that fist that can shatter mountains and split rocks arrives in front of Deming-ju. But he easily catches it. The man in front of him clearly didn't use any force, there's not even a fluctuation of mysterious energy around him.